Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 2022 National Coding Symposium. As everybody is getting in the room, realize we've got lots of people who might be listed as panelists. They might be presenting today, they might be presenting tomorrow, or all the way through Friday. That's the easiest way to put everybody in. We have teachers with students, we have individuals who are out there doing this work or wanting to do this work in here. We have a special code for people who need a certificate to show they attended. The only way you can get the certificate is if you attend the entire day. We do them by day. And there will be an opening code now in the beginning and then a closing code in about 3.5 hours when we end. And those two codes will go into a system that will generate you a certificate. It's meant for ACVREP, but if you need something just to show you attended, this is the way you can do it. Our opening code today is QUEST. QUEST. That is our opening code today. It will be dropped into the chat later on, so you can grab it from there. But for now, I would like to introduce Craig Mader. Welcome, Craig, to the National Coding Symposium.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that. And welcome everybody. This is our second year for the National Coding Symposium. And as luck would have it, some of the best things sometimes happen by happy accident. Originally, this coding symposium was going to be an on-site symposium at the California State School for the Blind. And our good partners there have been critical in us planning these events. But originally, back in 2020, or was it, yeah, I believe it was 2020, 2021, we were going to have this, 2021 actually, we were going to have this on-site program where we invited people from around whoever could attend, and really utilizing the Silicon Valley group of professionals that come and speak to students and young adults about opportunities. And then, as we all know, the world drastically changed. And we were able, or had to, shift it to a virtual platform, which, you know, when you think about it, makes really good sense. Coding on a virtual platform makes really good sense. And the response last year was overwhelming. It was huge. And so we are at it a second year. Our numbers are growing. The list of experts, people in the field who are breaking new ground for us has grown. And so we're excited about the people you'll be hearing from this week. We're excited that you are joining this group, and I think you'll greatly benefit from the time spent here, because this is our future. It's an overused term, but technology has been the great equalizer, especially for the low vision and blind community. It has provided not only employment, but access and equity in approaches to work, as well as education. That being said, we know there is a lot of work that still needs to happen. There's a lot of platforms that still need better usability and accessibility. And this team that's on these talks this week, are just a small group that have dedicated their lives and their careers to making that happen. And for the students who are attending, I really hope that you will consider this field, coding, whether it's at a professional level or whether it is because it will make you need it on a personal level to learn hacks to make systems work better for you in your particular learning style. So it's going to be a great week. A lot's going to happen, so we're going to get busy. And I'm going to introduce our first keynote speaker, and then we're going to turn it over to him. He's a familiar person, and for us old timers in the field, it's a very recognized name. And even if you don't know the name, you know the product. So our keynote speaker to start us all off today at the 2022 National Coding Symposium is Ted Henter. So Ted is the former founder and president of Henter-Joyce. And if you still don't know who that is, I'm sure you know Jaws. Yeah, the lights are going on now. We all know Jaws, okay? So a little bit about Ted. Ted has always been an ambitious person, a thrill seeker. He was a motorcycle racer until he lost his sight in a car accident. And he just made the adaptations to life and started his second career, and that was the founding of Henter-Joyce. They developed Jaws, which of course is a well-known product that many of us know and have used for years. And it has, of course, now been part of a larger company, Vispero. Even though Ted's retired, he hasn't slowed down at all. He's still an adrenaline junkie. I think that is the way he describes himself. He has raced through the Panama Canal 13 times in the dugout canoe, which sounds pretty scary to me. He's a snow skier. He is a brown belt in Kung Fu and martial arts. And I'm sure that laundry list just continues and continues on. But for brevity of time, I'm going to end it there. And I would like you all to join me in please welcoming the former founder and president, although now retired, of Henter-Joyce, Mr. Ted Henter.
And it would seem, Craig, that he is not popping in at the moment.
Oh my goodness.
We have emailed back and forth, so I know he is trying to attend. So just hold on tight. Okay. He is trying to attend. Let's see.
This is what in the business we say, do the stretch. Stretch for time, offside cue. We're still waiting.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
trying. This is the hiccup with Zoom that happens.
It does.
Every once in a while. In fact, we had a couple people that were having a hard time joining us. I'm going to push it one more time.
Well, I'll banter a little bit here with Adrian. Adrian, what do folks expect to have happen this week?
I was going to say we got some exciting stuff on the docket. Following Ted Henter is our original companion of Ted's and how they brought Jaws to life. Glen Gordon, a computer programmer, will be introducing a panel on getting started with coding. And so we've brought together some experts in the field to join Glen in our panel after hopefully Ted pops in to do his keynote address. Beyond that, we have some really exciting products that are currently on the market available to people through APH with Code Jumper and Code Quest. And we'll do a little deep dive with a panel for teachers and then a separate panel for students. Not everybody had to do the activities that we had posted on our website for this symposium to be current, but we do have those. If you haven't done them yet, they'll be available to you after. And of course, these two products from APH are available through, well, one through Quota, and Code Quest is free. And Code Jumper is available to everybody. We then wrap up today and we follow suit the rest of the week with similar activities with HTML, Quorum, Python coding. And then Friday, we wrap up with kind of a mix of different things, including just pursuing careers in coding as a whole and looking at how coding benefits you for careers beyond programming.
So Adrian, this is Glen Gordon. I just talked to Ted.
Perfect.
And I don't have great faith that the computer gods are going to serve Ted well. He said that he's having some problems joining from the browser and his computer went dead. And so I'm wondering if I should, they're very big shoes to fill, but I might be able to cover some of the same content that Ted was going to cover. And if he is able to join, I'll just defer to him at that point.
I don't think a single attendee, Glenn, would be disappointed to hear from you or not motivated by anything you have to say. I think that would be absolutely fantastic. For those of you who do not know Glen Gordon directly, Glen, we've been in this accessibility space with Jaws leading the forefront for, I think it's 27 years. And Glen Gordon is that original programmer who brought Jaws to life. with Ted Henter bringing it to the market as a program. But Glen has been there and continues to be there, tweaking and keeping JAWS current for the world, and truly leading the accessibility forefront across all planes, as JAWS enables blind and screen reader users the world over to interact and engage with computers to make things accessible. So thank you very much, Glen, for volunteering to fill in, and please take it away.
Well, thank you very much, Adrian. And
any chance, Glen, that you could turn your video on?
I thought that I actually did.
Let's switch to a different background.
Oh, I see why, I think. Hold on.
I think for our student attendees in the outfield to see us struggling with technology and to hear these names of all of us with our typical Zoom problems is, I hope, motivation for all the times that tech goes wonky. There you go, Glen.
Oh, you actually see me now.
We see you now.
I just want to change one more thing.
Absolutely. Know that all the tech lessons I've ever done never quite end up exactly as I foresaw them.
Yeah. It goes back to this idea of computers are not only the great equalizer in providing access, but sometimes the great equalizer providing us all with a level of humility. Makes me feel, being a low-end computer user, it makes me feel like I'm smart after all. I see other people struggle with technology.
So I am set to go.
Perfect.
Well, hello everybody. My name is Glen Gordon. I was actually having second thoughts about, not feeling as happy as I was last year when I was able to present to you all, and so I'm delighted to be back again. I have been working on the computer since 1985. I actually started really late. When I was growing up, I had Perkins Brailler, and that's about all that I had. A Perkins Brailler, and then after I left elementary school, I had a typewriter, and I would do my assignments in Braille, and then sit down at the typewriter with my Braille sheets in hand and copy everything off. So technology has moved a long way. But what that meant was, when I was young, I had some friends who had some early personal computers like Apple's and Radio Shack TRS-80s, but they weren't accessible to me. I didn't really have the chance to realize that computers were something that would both be interesting to me and something that I proved over time to be reasonable compatible with until actually, I was in graduate school. I was doing my MBA and took a programming class and had an old VersaBrailer. And using that, I was able to communicate with a computer. And that was my first chance, sitting there and actually being able to write some code. And those first experiences, many of you may have the question, well, what programming language should I learn first? And I think it's less important that you learn a particular programming language than you learn one. Because once you've learned one or two, all the other ones express the same concepts. The hardest part, I think, for me and for many of us, is mastering what those concepts are. And I think that's in particular why the way this year's National Coding Symposium is structured is going to be so powerful, because in successive days, we're going to be talking about different environments, different ways of sort of jump starting your coding career. So I was actually working on computers, the precursor to Linux. If you've heard of Linux or you've had some Linux experience, Unix is what Linux evolved from, and I was doing work, and lo and behold, when I met Ted, I met him because the company he worked for, Maryland Computing Services, was the company that provided the access software that I could use to access Unix computers. But time went on. Ted went on to start his own company, and I kept hearing about Microsoft Windows and how it was inaccessible. This was the mid 1990s. And I got really scared because what I thought was what many blind people thought at the time, which was there's no way that Windows would ever be accessible, that the technology we had used to make DOS, which was what PCs were running before Windows, that technology was not the same. It would never work in Windows, and that essentially access to computers for blind people would be completely eliminated. That was not a happy feeling. And when I heard that Ted was working on a screen reader, I wanted to go work with him. Now, keep in mind, I knew nothing about screen readers. I knew nothing about Windows. I had no chance of succeeding. Ted decided that I was worth gambling on. And I don't necessarily know why. I had done a couple of side projects for him, but nothing of the size of Windows and a program for Windows. But I said I wanted to join the company. He said, yes, welcome. And actually, there was a guy named Chuck Opperman.
Glenn,
Really, yeah.
I just wanted to let you know that Ted has joined us and has heard your last few moments. You're welcome to finish, but I want you to be aware. Thank you that Ted is here.
Well, I think I'm going to defer to Ted. I'm sure he'll mention that Chuck Opperman was the guy who started the Windows development and created the framework that I could build upon. So with that, my mentor in this whole world of screen reading and accessible technology, Ted Henter.
Ted, if you could check your mute, you are on video. We got you in clear. Leanne, are we able to unmute panelists?
I sent a request.
Okay, I think I
There
got
he
it now.
is.
Perfect, you're in, Ted.
Never had this trouble before. Okay, am I on?
Yes, you're looking clear.
Good to go?
Yeah, if you could lift your camera so it goes a little bit higher up. There you go. Perfect.
Okay. I'm Ted Henter, one of the co-founders of Henter-Joyce, the company that developed JAWS. And I appreciate Glen Gordon filling in for me. I was going nuts. I don't know what the heck was happening to me. So I want to start out by telling you just one experience I had with motorcycle racing as it relates to being blind. I was in Canada going about 120 miles an hour at 2 o'clock in the morning on a motorcycle. I was on the Kawasaki team, 24-hour race. And there was no lights on the track, but the motorcycle had 3 headlights. But I come to the end of the straightaway, I shut off the gas to get ready for a 90-mile-an-hour turn, and all 3 lights blew out. So it's 2 o'clock in the morning, and it's pitch black. I can't see a thing. So I had a split second to make a decision. I was going to die if I didn't do something. So I just downshifted, put on the brakes, and leaned into the turn just like I'd been doing for 100 laps before, and I made it. Now, speed forward about 5 years. Now it's 1978. I'm racing in the World Championship. I was in England. I was leaving the racetrack, going home to my friend's house. And I'm thinking about what I got to do. How am I going to get to Spain? How am I going to get my motorcycles over there? Just daydreaming. And I forgot you're supposed to drive on the left. So at the last instant, I realized, uh-oh, there's a car right in front of me. So I swerved to the right like an American would. And the British guy swerved to the left, like instinctively. But we almost hit on. I hit the windshield with my face, had 80 stitches in my face, broke the windshield. I had 13 stitches in each eyeball and had detached retinas. So I was not very happy about all that, but the doctors thought that one eye was going to be okay. I went back to the States, had an operation, and the operation was a success. But they warned me, well, you know, you might lose that retina in about 6 weeks. Sure enough, that's what happened. I went and had another operation, much less chance of success, and it was not a success. I woke up in the hospital room and everything was dark, just like it is now. And I knew I was going to be blind. So I had about 10 minutes of despair. And then just a nice feeling came over me, like a spirit, like an angel. And it pretty much let me know everything was going to be okay. And so everything has been okay since then. I had to go through the normal rehab, you know, walking with a cane, learning Braille. That didn't work out too well for me. Went away and got a guide dog. That was terrific. I recommend that. And so things went on. My division blind services counselor said, well, you know, computer programming is a pretty good career for blind people, up and coming, you know, these days. And I said, well, yeah, that's great. I'll do that. So I went to the University of South Florida in Tampa, which is a half hour from where I lived in St. Petersburg, Florida. And I met with the dean of the computer science department. And he said to me, I've had a blind person in my class before. He held up the whole class and used up a lot of my time. I don't want you in my class. So what? I'd never been rejected before, unless you count a couple of girlfriends. So I went home and thought about it. And I thought, well, that's not the only college around here. In fact, there was one about 5 minutes away from my house, a branch office. So I went there at night. It was for night courses. Talked to the professor, told him I already had an engineering degree, and I wanted to learn to be a computer programmer. So he let me take the class. He asked for volunteers. I got a lady to help me read the screen and enter the data because I couldn't even type then. And there were no talking computers, remember. This was 1979. No talking computers. Well, because my wife was working for a attorney. Her husband owned a bunch of hotels. They came over for dinner one night, and he was an engineer. He had an invention. I was an engineer. I had 2 patented inventions, and we got on really well. He offered me a job. Well, I was no ways ready for the job at that point in my career. But I told him, yeah, I'll come in. I'll work 8 to 10 hours a day, but I'll only charge you for 1 or 2 hours because I know I'm not productive. So that went on. Because I had a job offer, the Division of Blind Services bought me a T-term, which is a talking terminal that Dean Blasey was making back then. Well, this terminal, it wouldn't actually talk, it would just spell. So when you're doing COBOL, like perform as a function, but it would be PERFORM. You can imagine how slow and frustrating it was, but I persevered. And I would call Dean frequently, once a week. Say, why didn't I do that? How can I make it do that? And I gave him a couple ideas, like the silence button. In those days, we didn't have a control key. But as you know, sometimes with a talking computer, you just wanted to shut up. So I told him, hey, put a silence button on there. And after that, him and Mike Romeo, as in the Romeo Brailer, that's the way they made their computers. So after a while, they did come out with something that would actually speak instead of spell. And then because I kept bugging Dean, he offered me a job, wanted me to come up and do it there because I had a lot of good ideas, I guess. So my wife and I packed up our 6-month-old daughter and my 90-pound guide dog. We drove up to Maryland. First day of work, my parents came up too to help us unload some of the furniture. And that was a good ride. My dad and I walked to work with the dog. It was about a 25-minute walk through the neighborhood, down a gravel road, across the creek, through the cornfields and into the office, which is a 3-story farmhouse. So on the way home, that first day, I said to my dad, just hold back. Let me see if the dog can find it. Sure enough, the dog went right to the house. Went through the cornfields, across the creek, through the neighborhood, right to our house. Now, all the houses looked the same in that neighborhood. It was just amazing the dog did that. So for the next 4 years, I walked to work and home almost every day. I did have a neighbor that was working at the same place, so occasionally I'd get a ride, especially in the wintertime. So it was great working there with Dean. And when I got on that job, I had to learn Z80 assembly language. And I didn't know what that was. I never heard of that before. So Dean would help me, Mike Romeo would help me at work, and when I got home, my wife would read the manual to me. And over time and with a lot of effort, I was able to do reasonably good at assembly language programming. And we made several different models of talking computers. The Total Talk, which was just a terminal. Then we did the ITS, information through speech, which is sort of like a precursor to the PC, although it wasn't DOS. And then we did Total Talk PC, which was DOS. Things were going great, but the company shut down and I got laid off. They'd spent a lot of money developing a brailler that didn't quite work out. And anyway, they shut down. So lucky for me, Enabling Technology, another company here in Florida, bought the rights to the software I was working on. And so I got a job doing training and tech support. So that worked out great. In the process of training people, I met this guy named Bill Joyce. He was blind. Him and his dad owned several cable TV systems, and they sold one. And Bill came to me and said, "Look, I don't want to pay taxes on this. Why don't we start a company?" I said, "Well, great, but I don't have any money." I said, "That's okay. I'll pay the bills. You run the company." So that's how we started Henter-Joyce. And we did that for about 3 years. And then he came to me one day and said, "Well, look, I need to sell my half of the business because I got too many things going on. I'm getting a divorce, blah, blah, blah." So he gave us a year to come up with the money. And I borrowed some money at the bank. I got some money from my parents, and we were making a little bit of money at the time. So I was able and within a year, able to buy him out. So then my wife and I owned the company. Now, along the way, kind of about the same time, I met this guy named Jerry Bowman. He was a retired human resources guy. And he offered to come to work and help me out, volunteer. So we did. We had to fire a couple of people, and he helped me hire other people. We hired this guy, Chuck Offerman, right out of college. And we were developing JAWS for DOS. He was a very sharp guy. And he helped us find Glen Gordon, who you heard of before, and Eric Damry. So Chuck and I were working on JAWS for DOS, and Microsoft offered him a job. Well, he was in the middle of working for JAWS for Windows, and it wasn't ready yet. But I knew that Chuck's long-term goal, his dream, was to work for Microsoft. So Microsoft called me, wanted to know what I had to do, and I thought about it because we had a non-compete. I said, "Well, I know that's what Chuck wants. You can have him." Because at that time, Glen Gordon was working for us part-time, so we brought Glen on full-time. Now, the Microsoft, the reason they wanted Chuck was because they wanted an off-screen model. Windows screen readers have what's called an off-screen model because, well, in DOS, let me back up. In DOS, you know where the memory is, and you can go there and get the characters that are on the screen. In Windows, the only thing that's on the screen is dots. So the off-screen model, you have to intercept that text before it gets turned into dots. And that's when you have to hack into the system. And I'm sure Glen Gordon will tell you a lot more about that than me, because he's the main guy that did our off-screen model and made JAWS for Windows. So Microsoft wanted the off-screen model because that was the most difficult thing to do, and they were going to just make it available for free to help everybody do a screen reader. Well, we were a little concerned about that because they're going to give our technology away to our competition. But we figured, well, we're pretty smart. Glen's pretty smart. We can probably do it better than them because it's important to us. It's not very important to them, Microsoft. Well, then once word got out that they bought our product, the other developers got really mad, and Microsoft dropped the whole project totally. So we made out like bandits. We got to keep the money, and we didn't have to compete against our own off-screen model, and everything worked out really, really good. And by now, Glen was on full time. Well, he'd actually been on full time for a long time at that point. And we had a majority of the market because we were one of the first JAWS for Windows, one of the first Windows screen readers. Our main competition was GW Micro, and they were about 6 months behind us, I think. So we had captured a lot of the market by the time their product hit. So then around 1997-ish, the government, US government, and some big companies wanted a more secure Windows. Because Windows, like I said, we were able to hack into it. In those days, back in, 27 years ago, you had to hack into Windows to make a screen reader. Well, they made it more difficult with Windows NT, and we were stuck. So in one of the shows, Eric Damery, it's another funny story. He walked in one day and said he wanted a job. I said, well, I just fired the salesperson. I didn't want to know the salesperson. But after talking for a while, he's very charming and persistent. I said, okay, take the CD, go home and learn it and come back. I said, well, we hired him. He's a great guy. He's still working there for Vispero. So Eric noticed at one of the shows that some guy had a magnifier that was running on Windows NT. And that was Microsystem Software out of Framingham, Massachusetts. And their guy was Bill Kilroy. So we got together with Bill and we negotiated a deal to buy their product and their technology. So Glen took that and made it talk. So now we had a JAWS for Windows NT. And we just killed the market then because nobody else had it. It was the only one in the world for quite some time, thanks to Glen. Then another thing that happened was in those days, you had to have a separate synthesizer. Yes, 5 minutes. You had to have a synthesizer to go with the software. Well, that's another $250 or up to $1,000 for a desktop. Well, Eloquence called us at the office one day. They were a new company. They had a software synthesizer. Eric talked to them, and they they offered it to us very cheap if we packaged it with every copy of JAWS, which we did. And our sales were in the thousands, and so their sales went up in the thousands too because we were selling their product with our product. Well, we were buying their product, but we weren't actually selling it. We just included it with JAWS. It was so cheap. We just included it. And so now you could get a copy of JAWS with the synthesizer for $500, or in the case of NT, I think it's more like $800. But the other guys were way behind on that. They did catch up, as they always do. Because the competition always does. So life went on and everything was good. Gary Bowman, Eric Damery, Glen Gordon, Carl Wise, Bill Kilroy, and a bunch of other people. We had about 70 people working there when I left the company. And 30 of them were blind. We had blind tech support, blind sales, blind programmers. And it worked out great. So what did I learn in this? The first thing I learned, and I'd like to impart, is be prepared. When I was blinded, I already had an engineering degree. I went back to school to learn to be a programmer, and then an opportunity came along with Jeff Fortune. I got a job at the hotel. I met Dean Blasey, went to work for him. So I was prepared. I wasn't the smartest programmer around, but I was working hard at it, and it turned into a terrific career. The other thing I learned is sometimes you got to get out of your comfort zone. We were very comfortable, my wife and I, right here in St. Petersburg, her brothers and sisters, and her mom, my parents. But we had to pick up everything and move up to Maryland to go to work for Dean. But that was one of the best moves of our lives. So be prepared to go out of your comfort zone. And I think lesson number 3 is don't be afraid of people that are smarter than you are, like Glen. I hired Glen. I knew he was a very smart guy, or Jerry Bowman, or Carl Wise, Eric Damery. I wasn't an egomaniac, and I took the opportunity to hire these really smart, really good people to improve our product and improve our company. So that's about it. Any questions? Good. I want to thank Glen Gordon for filling in for me. I'm sorry about the confusion in the beginning there. I don't know what the heck what happened. I had to reboot my computer, but eventually it all worked out. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you, Ted. No apology necessary. It worked out beautifully. And Glen coming on and introducing you actually made it even better. So
Super.
appreciate it, and always a wonderful example of a little troubleshooting from you guys. For our audience members, this is a perfect space because this work ain't easy. And so,
Yeah.
so this is a wonderful opportunity to kick it back over to Glen Gordon. We do recognize everyone in the audience that we are running a little bit behind schedule, but not too bad. Glen Gordon, who I introduced earlier, and I won't speak much more to, as Ted also has been speaking on his behalf, is our moderator for our upcoming panel, Getting Started with Coding. So Glen is going to introduce our panel members, and we'll take a moment here to get them up on screen as well. Thank you, Glen, and thank you everyone for joining this panel, and thank you panelists for participating in the 2022 Coding Symposium.
It is great to be here. Part number 2, just with the TED intermezzo. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, I learned to program relatively late in life. I was in my mid to late 20s, and the way that I learned was very different than the things that are available to people today. And one of those tools that sort of unites our panelists is CodeJumper, that APH now develops after taking it over from Microsoft several years ago. And so although other topics about how best to get started programming are going to come up in this discussion, CodeJumper is sort of going to be the central theme for the next little bit. The people who are joining us on this panel are Joe Hodge from APH, Celeste Simone. Celeste, did I get your last name wrong?
You did great, thank you.
It's either Simone or Simon. I chose Simone. My synthesizer chose Simon, so I knew it would be one or the other. From the Northside ISD, Tim Regan from the Raspberry Pi Foundation, and Stephen Tholroy from the Stephen Hurst Foundation Senior School. And I will let each of you introduce yourselves, tell us a little bit about you and how you came to coding. Try to keep it to a couple of minutes, give or take, because these will not be your only opportunities to participate. And I think we're going to do it in order of you being exposed to CodeJumper. And I know, Tim, you were at Microsoft Research and were involved in the CodeJumper origins, right?
Yeah, indeed. So when we started off, I'm not at Microsoft anymore, but when Microsoft Research started off looking at this, we were worried that the improvements in the IT curriculum in the UK, because IT had moved from being very much about how to use IT tools to being computer science concepts, which was a great thing. But we felt that some kids were being left behind by that, especially blind children, because of the move to languages like Scratch and things like that. And so we wanted to address that problem and invent something that could be used in mixed classrooms of blind, visually impaired and sighted kids. So we started playing about with a physical computing idea. And Cecily Morrison, who was running the project at the time, invited in some blind children locally to help us co-design that. And so I was involved in that process. And one of the other panelists here today, Theo, who you'll hear from soon, was also involved. So that's how we met. But I mean, I was already a programmer at that point, so I'd come to programming way before then. But I hope that helps.
But you're not blind or low vision, correct? Or are you?
No, I'm not. No, that's correct.
So yeah, I have some follow-up questions about the experience of transitioning ways of learning for you, because that was probably a very new experience.
Yeah, brilliant. Good. I'm looking forward to those.
So Theo, what do you remember about learning this for the first time?
Well, I'm Theo Holroyd, I'm 15, and I currently go to a mainstream secondary school in Cambridge. But back when I was 7, I was lucky enough to be invited to make a series of visits along with other blind children to the Microsoft Research Lab in Cambridge to follow CodeJumper along its development journey. And I started right at the beginning where there was no electronics at all. They just 3D printed various different sort of shapes and sizes, and they were like, what would be the best thing to hold in your hand? What would be the best thing to set? And I mean, one of them prototypes, you even blow your to change it, which was quite cool, but it wasn't very practical. So people decided like dials would be the best in the end. And then I went through several stages like that, like all the different, how the different knobs felt, and literally like the different feeling of them, and then was it going to be smooth or rough? And I went through several sort of stages like that, which was really exciting. And I was lucky enough to follow it through all the way to release, which included a session with Tim, which I really enjoyed, where I was helping to think like, what are all the different sort of bugs you can make with this thing, and then how do you alert users to them when they've made them? That was a really fun point. But anyway, I followed it all the way through, and I tried it out with a beta version. I had a beta kit at school with my friends, which I tried out. So that was really cool. And then it was released, which was really fun. And there was a whole website released, and that was really cool. It was really exciting to feel like I'd gone with the product all the way to its release several years later. And that was really, really exciting for me. And then after that, as I'll say on my presentation in a couple of days' time, I have got into text-based coding, and I have achieved a lot in that as well.
That's great, and we'll hear more from you as this hour progresses. So Joe, how did you come to know all of this technology?
Yeah, so I was actually at APH when Microsoft brought it into demo for us, and then kind of I did QA for probably 4 years at APH, and got to test, put it in kids' hands. I now help out with product testing for CodeJumper for the puzzles that we're doing. So one of the cool things for me, observing the project, it's kind of cool, piggybacking off of Theo here, is me being totally blind my whole life. Coding was never pushed to me. It was never something that was brought up as something I could do, even though I had interest in computer programming from a young age. But one of the neat things for me is, learning the concepts of coding, like loop. You can feel a loop, for example. Kind of having that visual representation of a idea that someone's using when they're coding was really neat for me to see. And then taking it around to kids at different School for the Blinds or different summer camps and stuff. It was really neat to watch them get their hands on it and just have fun, and play with sighted peers to make different stories or different puzzles. So it was pretty cool.
How about you, Celeste? How did you get involved?
So I have taught an integrated curriculum in all of the different hats that I've worn as an educator, and everything from integrating the patterns within mathematics to codes to decoding and breaking apart the language processes that we have. And it just started to kind of come together that coding was part of it, and this experience of having an experience of coding beyond just an hour of code or block coding that you could see. And when I actually found out from colleagues of mine about the CodeJumper program, and I have 2 VI students in my classes, it all came together, but it just happened to come together a little bit beyond just really working with and giving opportunities to those 2 students. Every single one of my kids hooked onto coding in such a different way and began to experience it. And when I moved into more advanced coding, I recognized the impact that a hands-on experience of coding could generate for my students, and it was beyond exceptional.
What I'm going to do for the remainder, for the most part, is to actually just put questions out there and let each of you dive in a little bit with an answer. And the first one really has to do with, what is CodeJumper from the eyes of someone who's never experienced it, from the hands of someone who's never experienced it? I think of programming as something that you do at a keyboard, but this is more physical from what I can gather.
Very much so. I think the idea was to kind of map some of the programming structures that we're all familiar with now from text-based languages into something tactile for younger kids to really get to grips with. And I think that Theo talks a bit about the design of that, but I think that really helped with the collaborative fun aspect of getting some of these ideas. You know, some ideas you'd readily recognize, like loops and control structures, but also some that I don't think I'd realized were kind of learning moments, like how to debug. Because as you trace out with your hands, you've got a mental model of what you expect, what sound you expect to come out, and when it doesn't, it gives you a clue as to what's gone wrong.
So what does it mean? What's the kind of program that one could create? And maybe if we walk through just an example of that, that might give people a little bit of a feel for what this is.
So one of the programs we use a lot in demoing is, I'll just use Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. So predominantly with CodeJumper, you have what are called pods that connect to a hub. The hub is the brain. It's the Bluetooth speaker. It's sort of the, where sounds are coming from. There's 2 buttons on the hub for play and stop. And then there's 4 audio jacks on there, 2.5 audio jacks for the different threads. So when you, on the computer itself, when you pair all this together, for example, in thread 1, let's just say, I don't have the program pulled up, so I'm just kind of doing it off of memory, but you would have a sound set, and CodeJumper has a preloaded tons of sound sets. So you have like animal noises, music, there's stories, and then there's also custom sound sets. So for example, in mine that I brought up here with Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, you would set it to, I think there's just one under music called Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. So you plug in a pod and you have a duration dial and you have a speed dial, or a sound dial and a duration dial, sorry. So basically everything is able to be, when you're touching these dials, you can definitely tell the difference. So for example, on the sound dial, as I turn it, it would go through that sound set. So it might say star, it might say little. And depending on where you have the duration dial, it's going to depend on the speed. So you want to probably go ahead and take it down to normal speed. And you can hear all this. As you're plugging these pods in, you can trace the code and the program will actually tell you, so you can hear it say twinkle at a normal speed, or you can hear it in a fast speed. And you're as you're kind of programming this, you have all the keys to do so. So the idea is, as you connect these pods on this thread of code, you're ultimately trying to build out Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. And as that's a very basic one. So as it gets more complex, you can plug in more pods or do more complex things such as loops or constants or if this then that. So I kind of look at it as it's sort of taking the idea of block coding or Scratch that's sort of more physical site oriented and putting it into a representation that you can sort of feel by touch, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Celeste, you mentioned that you're integrating this not only for the VI students, but for the whole class. What has been the response of those students who don't necessarily live through touch? What's their experience working with these physical objects?
Yeah, so, from the way that I teach coding, I go through a process of kind of discovering where codes are and how you can find them around the world. And then normally I would have jumped into a block coding program, moving into, more advanced code writing and that kind of thing. However, right after I kind of introduce the the idea that, codes are everywhere and where you can find them in very novel ways. And I jumped into using the Code Jumper program with my entire class. And I teach K-5, and I did do this with 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders. 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders. I didn't do it necessarily with the younger ones, just because we were doing something else, and I'll circle back at that with them, since they really haven't had any STEM before I had shown up. And so when I put this in front of 2nd through 5th graders, and they had already begun to discover codes, and if you're a teacher and you're doing my breakout group today, I'll go into it a little bit more. But we moved from this discovery of codes, code writing, and then coming into the Code Jumper. And so the kids started to put together stories using the Code Jumper, especially with the animal sounds for the younger kids, and then recognition of music and pieces. And then one of the favorite things the kids would do is they would pair program with the Wonder robots using a program like Blockly or one of the block coding, after they had already done a couple of sessions with Code Jumper. And then moving from, we did this whole like cowboy or cowgirl rides into town story, and we had that's one of the favorite parts onto there, including the animals, dogs chase cats, things like that. And what they did was they programmed Code Jumper. One group would program Code Jumper using the different loops and, figuring out how long they want it to go and what different inputs they're going to be using. And then next to them was a group that was using the Wonder robots and using the Blockly program, which is a very easy program for kids to use, but pairing them together gave that low floor, high ceiling challenge for all of the kids working together. And so eventually what they ended up having was a robot that did exactly what they asked it to do using the Blockly program, with the background story behind it using the Code Jumper. And it was not an easy task, but they loved it so much because it was so hands-on and easy to understand. And you could see the parallel between using the block code program and the Code Jumper program, because it's set up similarly for students who can visually see it, but then the accessibility, funny thing, using the JAWS program on certain computers and whatnot, and then also adding that into their having the parallel together was just mind-blowing. And then we went into a lot of other coding. We probably did maybe 4 or 5 extra weeks after that of more advanced coding, and it was so easy for them to understand. And when I say them, every kid, right? Every kid had the ability to have an adaptation, a differentiation, an integration, and it was fabulous to see that for every kid pulling into it.
Excellent. Theo, what were the hardest concepts in terms of programming for you to master?
Well, some of the hardest concepts in Code Jumper, to be honest, initially in the prototypes, the loop pods had some buttons which originally weren't that easy to set, and that's why in the version which is released now, the loop pods have a distinct click every time you make them. Every time you turn the dial to make it go from 1 to 8, or they have a distinct click, and also it speaks out what setting you're currently at. So originally, the concepts I found a bit more difficult with variables, because Code Jumper didn't really. But later on, I was looking at them, and it was very helpful to have physically you plug them into the middle of the dials. And that actually really did help me to understand that concept, because it's quite complicated how you basically set things and then you can return to them later. So that was one concept. But also I've really enjoyed using Code Jumper a few years ago to work together with my friend, and it's been a really valuable source to help do stuff with other sighted children, because sighted people, as other people have said, really enjoy Code Jumper as well, because it's really physical and it's really cool. So at my old school, I used to do some stuff with my cycling friends, and I created a custom sound set, which was really fun. And I basically did a story, and it was about Tim, and there was a conditional. Does he either get loads of money, or does a monster come and eat his computer or something? And it was quite funny. I was much younger, and it was really funny. And as I said, one of the sounds was this monstrous war, and it turned out to be really fun. And that taught me conditionals and how you can go into basically 2 different threads. And it was really helpful to have during a conditional, for example, in text-based, it just goes from top to bottom. But in CodeJumper, you literally have 2 different strands, and then you merge them at the end, which really taught me that 2 different things happen based on the variable at the top. For example, mine was random, 50-50, so that was really helpful.
Tim, you've been working with Theo, it sounds like originally because he came into the lab at Microsoft Research, but you've been continuing to work together. Is that right?
Yeah, well, I mean, Theo and I hit it off quite quickly when we started working together. And I remember one of the things Joe mentioned was Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. One of the things we tried to do is gradually increase the complexity of the tunes. So we'd say, okay, you've got these variables, here's a tune, can you make it? And Theo got so good at this. I was having to dream up some really torturous tunes. So that was quite fun. Anyway, but yeah, straight afterwards, I think I was chatting to Ellen, Theo's mum, and Theo was enrolled in a code club who couldn't really cope with the low vision stuff. And we were kind of banging our heads thinking, what can we do about this? People who are this enthusiastic we ought to be able to do something. And then I just thought, oh, well, why don't I just mentor him once a fortnight or so? And so we've been doing that ever since.
How has it progressed? Are you guys still using CodeJumper? My guess is you've probably moved on to some other things in the subsequent years.
We moved on to Python.
And then what are you using as the environment for Python?
Do you want to pick that up, Theo?
So the setup I'm currently using, it's taken a long time to get there, but I'm using Visual Studio Code as the text editor. And then I'm using, actually at the moment, Windows Subsystem for Linux to run it, although that and the command line basically serve the same purpose, because command lines are very good for, basically it's a way for screen readers to read out the error messages accessibly, and it gets you familiar with the command line, which is very important, because it's an important skill to know the basic commands, like how to get to a directory, how to run a program. So I used Visual Studio Code for text editor, and then I had to install Python as well, obviously. That was the first thing. But before that, I did use, as I'll talk about on Thursday, other things like Edge Sharp and sort of more basic things, because it takes a long time to build up to that. Because, for example, VS Code gives you suggestions every time you type, and that does get very, very complicated. For example, you're suddenly prompted into a suggestions box, and you're told do you want it to be if or else if, or and often I just escape those because I like actually properly typing it out myself. But that's why I currently use it. It currently works very well.
And so you have JAWS working as the screen reader for those, or are you actually running like Orca or something on Linux when you're doing it this way?
To be honest, Linux is just a command line, which is just Windows Subsystem for Linux on Windows. So I've used JAWS and NVDA in various contexts. I found JAWS to be more helpful for sort of documents, and NVDA does this beep thing with the indents rather than just announcing the levels. So I've actually used both JAWS and NVDA in coding, and I found they both have a lot of different things. For example, I found the NVDA Braille display drivers are a bit more hacked together and don't include support for top and bottom of documents with the normal cursors. They use some other funny cursor. But then, for example, NVDA, as I said, better at the indents because it has this option to do sounds. So I've used both JAWS and NVDA for this.
Well, it's something for us to put on our JAWS menu to do indent sound.
Yeah, I must say that would be awesome. That would fill in a really good gap because then I'd probably use JAWS a lot more of the time for coding.
Okay.
That'd be really awesome.
Okay, you got a deal.
That'd be really cool.
Joe, you mentioned something when we were preparing for this that I think builds on what Theo was saying, which is, don't limit yourself to a single tool.
Yeah, so growing up, Glenn, I probably, like everybody else, you have a favorite something, a favorite screen reader, favorite piece of software, or hardware, whatever it is. So the problem with that is you limit yourself sometimes. So I found in my life with doing this testing of different things, I've actually been surprised sometimes, for example, I'm a heavy iOS user, but sometimes lately I've been using Android because certain apps work better, and just in my daily life, so where I think that relates to coding or to people out there is just, if you can get in a situation where you can learn, how to use all of these tools. I mean, like Theo mentioned, NVDA and JAWS, having knowledge on how to use both of them for different situations is very important. And I think something that's overlooked a lot of times. We're often just given one device, one piece of software, you learn it, and then you know nothing else. And, unfortunately, in the blind world, it's not, not everything is always going to work with that one particular device. So it is surprising to me lately how many things work better, even just with, talkback versus voiceover, or JAWS versus NVDA or whatever. So it's always interesting to, you might get 90% there with one, and then the final 10%, you have to use something else.
Leanne sent a message saying, try leaving. I assume that was not for us. Oh, that was just for one user. Okay.
Correct, yes.
Okay, perfect. I would like to start asking for questions to be typed in so that we can get to them in our remaining few minutes. I don't think anybody has added a specific question for panelists. Leanne, am I correct? Are there any questions
None that have come
stacking
in
up?
so far.
Okay, so if you have a specific question, now would be a good time to start typing it in. What's been the experience with students transitioning to more traditional programming languages from something like CodeJumper, and how smooth is that transition going?
So Celeste may want to comment on this as well, but I know from the APH side, that is actually something we're looking into heavily, is how can we take CodeJumper and take it from this physical component, because right now, for example, you can't save your story and do anything with it. So you create something, and then once you close the program, it's gone, right? So that's something that we're looking to possibly do with, here at APH, is kind of taking you to that next step. But I don't know, Celeste might be a really good person to ask, moving, from her students on, and Tim as well.
I know.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Tim.
No, you go for it.
So from my perspective, it's a very seamless move. In fact, like I had mentioned, this is the first year that I've ever used the CodeJumper program, but I've always done different type of coding to introduce my students to the concept of coding, right? This idea. And so having moved from CodeJumper, I actually moved directly into, like I said, the block coding. But we had gone through a few different transitions because we looked at the difference between languages and coding with languages. And I got kids set up with the idea of the code Braille for the English language. We talked about, and discovered pieces into there. And then we moved into different types of other languages, getting kids set up into Duolingo and looking at those as codes and pieces from there. And then moving into, of course, like the traditional coding programs like, Hour of Code and whatnot, but also moving into, the graphic design pieces of and where codes come from and pieces into there. And so we moved into the designation within arts and into the, like I mentioned, the English language. But then particularly going into actual coding, I kept the CodeJumper set for a while up in my room, 2 of them, so that kids could go over there, access them, when we were doing stations. And a lot of kids were using it to remember what to do and to go back to figure out how to do those more complex codes, they would go there, practice on there a little bit, and then move into more of the complex coding pieces, because they were able to have a tactile experience with a code. I mean, you're literally holding a code in your hand, right? You're holding the blocks in your hand. And so a lot of kids, especially at the younger age, or just people who are experimental in a lot of ways with hands-on projects, they really remember things from that tactile experience that they wouldn't normally be able to remember beyond having held a code in their hand. So for me, just watching those kids go back to the program to remember what to do and then applying it, that was, solidified it for me.
One of the questions that came up for you was, what's your background in terms of software and coding? Did you study this or did you pick it up on your own?
So I am just a huge learning nerd with anything that you could throw at me. I was a general education teacher, 3rd, 4th, 5th, advanced sciences and maths for the middle school. My background, I am endorsed in a lot of people call it ESL, EL, ELL, they're, English language, but I'm also a reading specialist too. And so all of these different pieces that I've found, I actually discovered when I began to teach math and word problems in particular. If I could teach the kids to code these and discover the patterns in them, they actually remember them, understand them, and can break them apart. And I did the exact same thing with my teaching the kids about the different forms of writing and how to create, an incredible writing project based off of not having to remember the process, because I just, developed codes for it. And from there, it just kind of started to jump into, we started to look at code.org when it first started coming out, and, and moving into there. And then once you start to code robots, it's so much fun. You just start taking them home on the weekends and playing with them until you can figure it out and discover all the awesome stuff. And that's what I did. And so I have zero formal training on any computer science. I just love it. And it's really weird because what happened is now I'm, of course, the person, when the tech guy isn't there, my tech buddy at my school who helps fixing people come to me to help with technology because I've learned how to FIO or figure it out, right? So that's my background. I love this kind of stuff, and I've learned how to do it on my own pretty much.
Excellent. Tim, you were going to jump in, I think, a little bit with the answer to this question.
Yeah, just quickly, we did provide, when we were making CodeJumper, the interface has a version where if you're low vision, you can turn off all the backgrounds. You just get the text and you can get that read out. So CodeJumper does have a kind of stepping stone towards text-based programming in that it will read out the pseudocode for the for the layout you've got in front of you.
Yeah, so I found that really helpful as well, because in fact,
Theo, stop for a second. The person who's doing the text transcription asked if you could talk a little slower. She's having trouble capturing everything.
Okay. So this thing where you could listen to the code really helped me, as it was a stepping stone for me in between the CodeJumper and the text coding. Otherwise, it's a pretty big leap. So this thing where you could listen to the code, in fact, I listened to it over and over for various different programs, and I learned about conditionals and for loops and if statements, and it was a good stepping stone between CodeJumper and how they'd be represented in the actual text at the other end. And of course, it doesn't include brackets, it doesn't include indentation. In fact, they use words like end if and end for, which is different from Python. But it was a good first step, because then from then on, I could learn about, for example, rules in Python like brackets and indentation. And all that stuff, which I mean, to be honest, if you just want the code, can get quite boring, but you do need to know it because otherwise you won't be able to make your code run.
I have a question for both you and Joe, and this has to do with how do you comprehend code when it's in textual form? Are you able to listen to a line at a time and make pretty good sense out of it often, or are you reviewing word by word, or are you using Braille, or a combination of all things? Joe, let's start with you.
For me, I'm able to detect a line, but I also use Braille a lot of times when I'm reviewing a line of code, just so there's not any mistakes. I'm not a fan of listening to, especially like punctuation with screen readers. So Braille really helps me with that. So that's particularly how I do it. I'll review a line with JAWS, for example, and also read it in Braille.
And how about you, Theo?
So I do output in JAWS and Braille, and I mean, to be honest, I found the Braille display very, very useful lately because it can give you that line by line output, and also it can have spaces at the beginning for the indents, so you can in real time see whether it's indented or not.
We got a question about developing for Raspberry Pi, and I know a lot of people are using Python there. Tim or Theo, have your journeys sent you in that direction?
Shall I start, Theo? Yeah, I think the question was, is Raspberry Pi hardware and software accessible? And the answer is some of it is. And a lot of Raspberry Pi people start off from scratch, and that's a bit of a disaster from the accessibility front. But there's a lot of work going on into Python pathways through learning. So if you concentrate on the Python stuff, then yes, it's accessible. And even the more embedded versions of the Raspberry Pi, like the Pico, which you can use to program different bits of electronics, that uses a Python library. So yeah, if you're careful about which bits of the learning you stick to, it is accessible. I'm not sure entirely about the hardware question. I need to think about that, what it means for hardware to be accessible. I don't have a simple answer to that. Sorry.
So have you and Theo done Raspberry Pi-esque projects?
Well, to be honest, I've mostly worked on the PC and Windows. And to be honest, that's because it supports both JAWS and NVDA, which are really great screen readers. And Orca has been a bit limited in the options about navigation. So to be honest, I've mostly stuck for PC. But I mean, of course, if you did want to run any of those files on a Raspberry Pi, you could just copy them over with SCP or just using a USB stick. So it would be very quick to get them onto a Pi once you've created them. But there was one more question I saw in the chat about Apple devices, and the answer is I've had a very hard experience with that. This was a couple of years ago, and I was in a computing lesson, a few lessons in fact, and the computing teacher said everybody was going to use this app called Swift Playgrounds on the school iPads. And RNIB had made these sort of overlays, which for the first couple of exercises did the job, but then after that, it was nearly impossible to work out because they got really complicated diagrams, and then you had to write this very complicated code. And Swift was also pretty finicky about syntax, but that wasn't actually the issue. The issue was that when you were on the Braille display trying to edit code on the iPad, it just got crazy. And basically, the iPad doesn't like multi-line text fields. And actually, it's nearly impossible to input a quote onto an iOS device using a Braille display. So it basically got more and more harder. And then I basically abandoned it. And then sadly, I lost some marks in the test because it was like, here's the Swift Playgrounds diagram. So Apple devices aren't that accessible with coding, so.
Yeah, but you've not tried working on a Mac, for instance, and developing something for an iPhone yet?
Well, I have done very basically. I started to try and put the Hangman game over to iOS. I encountered quite a lot of issues because I developed this Hangman game in Python, a very simple one, and then I was thinking, let's turn it into an app. But I encountered lots of issues, including having to say where every element on the screen was, but there is this new version I've heard it's more accessible, but I have not tried that because I moved more towards getting it on the web and learning all the different languages you need for that.
I know there are going to be more discussions throughout the day about CodeJumper, And so I'll leave more about that probably to those discussions. But broadly speaking, in our remaining time, if you wanted to give someone resources for learning more textual-based programming, are there any resources that immediately jump to mind for you? Joe, why don't we start with you on this?
None really jump out to me. I've actually played around with Swift playgrounds myself, and programming a drone. But as far as like a teaching process, none actually have stuck out to me that I would feel comfortable recommending.
Anyone else want to jump in? I have a couple as holdouts.
Can I kind of slightly sidestep the question and pick up on something Theo said, which it is tempting to just learn a programming language, but you have to remember that you're also learning about the structure and management of computers. And I think I hope this lasts, but the prevalence of Bash now is impressive. So if you're on Windows, you've got the Windows subsystem for Linux, which Theo mentioned. If you're on the Mac, you've got the terminal. If you're on Linux, you've also got the terminal. All of those speak the same language, which is a shell called Bash. If you can get fluent in that, then a lot of computer management becomes dead easy on any machine you pick up. Well, easy is a strong word, but becomes more accessible. So learn the command line, learn Bash.
And I mean, I think the corollary is if you don't learn those things, you're going to be at a disadvantage. Yeah, because that's not just true for people who are blind or low vision, right? That's true broadly speaking. The command line has become the in thing again.
Yeah, I agree completely.
Yeah. So two things that I wanted to call your attention to. One is the program-L email list. I think someone typed that in the chat earlier. It is a place where a certain number of folks who are blind or low vision and have experienced some of these issues and problems before come to compare notes and offer support. And I notice also that Debbie Armstrong put in the chat a Discord discussion, so you can all learn about what Discord is, talking about starting to write software and doing programs. Knowing Debbie as I have for probably close to 20 years, anything that she's involved with probably has some pretty good content. So another option for you all. We have about a minute and a half. Is there anything anybody would like to say in closing before we wrap things up for this panel?
One quick thing. I don't know if there are kind of sighted kind of teachers and QTVIs in the audience. One thing I found really helpful with Theo is having him relay the audio from the screen reader. I don't think I'd realized how chatty screen readers were until I was listening to it too.
So when you're saying relaying it, you're not meeting with him in person, you're meeting with him remotely, is that correct?
We were in person, but
Okay.
when the pandemic started, I think I lost sight of what Theo was listening to. Sight's the wrong word. Lost ears to what Theo was listening to. And that's been really useful.
And so when you're saying he's relaying the audio, you're saying that he's speaking what the screen reader said, or he's coming up with a way of piping it to you?
Yeah, Theo can choose whether he pipes it to me or not.
Oh, I see what you're saying. That kind of relay. And what do you do when it turns out that the screen reader is saying too much?
For example, it says a lot about at the command line. So there are various techniques to make that less invasive. But also, it's just a useful lesson to me. What I think is too much and what Theo thinks are too much are different.
Yeah. No, very good point. Any closing thoughts, Theo, Celeste, or Joe? Just generally, if people are interested in coding, what quick bit of advice would you offer them?
So, I mean, to be honest, if I was going to recommend one resource, as funny as it would be, I would recommend having Code in Advance in hard copy Braille, because when I learned text-based coding, when I moved from CodeJumper, it was really helpful for me, for my QTVI, to prepare hard copy code and then me to copy it down, because that was a intermediate step, because I could see all the indents on the page rather than having a one-line Braille display. And I could easily, so before I wrote my own programs, I was sort of copying down some stuff from hard copy and then editing it if it didn't work. And sometimes it had a bug on purpose. So that would be one of the first steps. And I didn't actually have a Braille display at the beginning, but I would say if you're doing text-based coding and you know Braille, it's very important you have a Braille display, because that gives you at least that one line of output. I mean, to be honest, I do not use it for input with coding because it sometimes needs computer Braille and non-directional quotes, which is fiddly, but I often just use it for output.
Very good. Celeste, I think you were jumping in too.
Yeah, I was going to say, I love the idea of the variety. So the more programs you can try, the more hands-on applications, the different ways that you can try out coding, you're going to find a fit that works really well for you so that you can retain the information, because that's really what it's all about. It's not just about learning, it's about retaining and applying. And those are the pieces that you have to find the best learning pathway for yourself. And that is, using those different varieties. What might hook for one person might not hook for another, because they just don't have the background connections to be able to make that work. But with another program, it might click immediately. And when it does, it's amazing, because then you start to build those connections and a platform for the foundation. So the variety, I think, is very important.
And Joe, any final thoughts?
Yeah, for me, I agree with what everybody said. The command line is super important. I'm glad Tim mentioned it. The just getting to know your tools, learning everything you can about how these screen readers work. Unfortunately, they don't all work the same. And reaching out to other people in the field. So, whether it's an email to Glen or an email to, somebody else that's out there. Learning from each other is always important. Networking has been a big help for me. So, and the biggest thing too is, if you like programming and you like doing code-based work, get involved. Try to get involved in different school activities. Reach out online. There's lots of things out there. So, and a lot of self-teaching tools as well. So. As things progress, I found a lot of different tutorials that I've sort of reached out and listened to.
Thank you all very much for joining us, and thanks to our panelists for a very lively and engaging discussion. You made my part easy, so thanks to all of you, and I hope those of you who are watching and listening found this as informative and interesting as I did. Thanks again.
And thanks to you, Glenn. Great job.
Thanks, Glenn.
Thank you.
Wonderful work, Glenn. Thank you, Celeste, Theo, Joe, and Tim. That was a wonderful panel. I want to remind everybody that the resources on our National Coding Symposium website do target some lessons and activities for getting started in code. So resources and lessons specifically on HTML that we'll cover a little bit tomorrow are there. The Code Jumper and Code Quest resources are there, in addition to Quorum and Python. Those are all on our National Coding Symposium website and available to everyone to get started. I also want to say this is a wonderful community, and the suggestion to reach out to people, don't hesitate. They feel like big names in our world, but it is still a small community that we work and thrive in. And definitely people are there to connect with and answer questions. We are going to do a little bit of tricky maneuvering depending on your interest. I'm going to let Leigh-Ann explain exactly how we're going to do this, but we're going to have 2 concurrent sessions. I know it'll keep simple for the students and people staying in this room, and then for teachers we'll move over. But Leigh-Ann, please share.
Hello, everyone. Hopefully you're in the right space, that you are hoping to stick with us and our students. We welcome all of you. I'm going to turn it over to Adrian to introduce our next guests.
Absolutely. Thank you, Leanne. I'm very excited about this concurrent session. Again, a reminder in the chat, if you're a teacher, to jump over and link to the Zoom room that's happening concurrently just for teachers. Though if you are a teacher with students, this is the place to be. This session is directed at students. We are excited to have both Robin Lowell and Beth Dudycha from Insight to Execution, also known as I2E, to host this panel, Jumping into Code Jumper. Both of these guys have had, both of these women have had a wonderful history of bringing Code Jumper to life for our blind and low vision students, and writing user guides and activities and all sorts of fun things that they will dive into about this. Thank you, Beth, and thank you, Robin, for joining us, and I'll leave it at that.
Great, thank you. Yeah. So yes, welcome. I'm going to start. I'm going to share my screen, but maybe Beth, let's introduce ourselves without the big screen. Let's do it with ourselves. So yeah, my name is Robin Lowell. I am a teacher of visually impaired, special education, distance learning, itinerant, in the classroom, you name it. I've been there. So I'm so excited all these students are here. This is going to be really fun, and I am looking forward to showing you some new Code Jumper activities.
My name is Beth Dudycha, and I am a teacher also, taught in the classroom for many years. And I hope to create some of these puzzles because I love Code Jumper, and I just can't wait to share these with you because you will probably enjoy them like I did. And it will give you something to do with Code Jumper besides some of the lessons that your teachers might be doing in your class.
Awesome. All right, so I'm going to share my screen now, and I'm going to actually remember to share my sound, which is what I always forget to do. So there we go.
I think we have one more person to introduce, don't we, Robin?
Yes, that's next. So I'm going to go for it. So are we, can everybody see my screen that just says Code Jumper? Make sure I have the right one. Okay, fantastic. Great. Okay, so Beth is going to introduce us to the most important hero of the day.
Drum roll, please. This is CJ. CJ is a little character who's going to be with us when we do Code Jumper puzzles. He is an alien life form, new to Earth, loves adventure, and he hasn't learned Twitter yet, but we wonder if maybe in the future he'll have a Twitter handle. CJ is blue and kind of reminds me of a cross between a cat, raccoon. He has huge eyes, enormous eyes, and a little chain around his neck that looks like the play pod of Code Jumper hanging around his neck, kind of like a necklace maybe. He's got some orange tips on his ears and stripes on his tail, and just looks like someone I'd like to cuddle up with on a rainy day. Maybe he'd be something that we would pet, like a pet. But CJ has a lot of attitude, so.
Yeah, I think CJ is very mischievous. Mischievous. Can't say that word. That's right. So yes, so the look at CJ's eyes, looking at you like, what kind of trouble can I get into here on planet Earth? So
it's trouble. He's curious, Robin. That's a nice way to say it. He's curious.
Yes, yes.
Mischievous, so. Maybe.
Mischievous, yes. So we're going to have CJ with us today in all of our activities. So keep that in mind. Okay, so Beth.
Okay, I am very curious what, from our audience here. I would like to know what kind of coding experience you have. And if you don't know what coding is, then you probably don't have any experience, and that's totally okay. We do not expect you to know what coding is or have a lot of coding experience, but some of you might. Some of you may have done coding with another organization or another something else in your classroom or your school. You might have played with Code Jumper before, or maybe you've seen it on a different webinar or experienced it, some of the sound sets in a different place. So Robin, do we want to have them take come off of mute?
Well, since there's 90 something of us, so feel
Oh,
free to put it in the chat from
Okay.
a scale of 0, no coding experience, to 5, lots of coding experience. So take a moment. But if you want to, come off mute and tell us. That's totally fine too. Feel free to verbalize.
Lots of
Verbalize,
zeros.
they will have to raise their digital hand and I will have to give them
Okay.
permission.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Leanne. Sorry about that. We weren't sure at the beginning.
So what we have so far: 0s, 3, 3, 2, 1, 5 to 3, 1, 3 in text code experience,
Yay.
5 in code jumper. We have a 1. So we have kind of all over the board. So this is great. So what I'm seeing though is everybody has some sort of experience, whether it's
Well,
just
there were a lot of zeros at the beginning, Robin.
Oh,
so
okay.
there's a handful too of people who have never had any coding experience, and that's great. We're so glad you're here. This is a great way to dip your toe in understanding computer science, and CodeJumper is an excellent introduction to that.
I think my favorite one so far is there's a 2.5.
Oh, yeah.
Totally makes sense to me. I love that. And Deborah said, I work at a college where many attempt coding classes and want to help with access challenges. My coding experience is level 5. Great, awesome. Okay, so now we have next question.
So for those of you who probably don't have coding experience, you don't have to answer this one. But if you have used CodeJumper before, you might be a 5. If you've never used CodeJumper before, you'd be a 1. Have you had any experience with CodeJumper? Even if you've just maybe seen it, you might be a 1. If you've seen someone else work with it. I know last year, before a lot of people had their hands on them, we were doing a lot of webinars and experiences virtually to kind of be introduced to it. That gives us an idea of how many of you are experienced with coding and how many of you are experienced with coding with CodeJumper. So 1s, a couple of 0s, a 3.
Great.
Lots of responses. Thank you everyone for participating. Oh, a 20.
Oh, 20. Yes.
Oh, we have a CodeJumper expert out there. I am so excited for you to meet CJ.
I love that. Great. Well, awesome. So let's do a little bit of diving in. How about that? Okay. So moving forward. Oops, I went too far. Don't want to spoil that. Okay. So now let's just take a look at CodeJumper itself. And there's CodeJumper, and then, okay. So on the right-hand side of the screen right now, what I have is, right now you'll see the, let's see here. All right. Okay, so on the screen right now, what I have is on the right-hand top portion of the screen, I have the CodeJumper app. So the app is where the CodeJumper kit actually connects to the computer so we can do our coding. We have our threads that we'll talk about. And below that, I have the CodeJumper kit on camera. I have the hub. So the hub is the biggest piece of CodeJumper. It's white with a speaker, so you can feel all the little holes for the speaker. There's a rocker dial where we can turn it on. A big round circle button with a triangle inscribed in it, and that's our play button. And to the left of that, we have a smaller circle button with a square inside of it. That's our stop button. And if we move down to the front of the hub, we have these little plugs where our pods plug into. So this is like where CodeJumper all begins, is the hub. And this connects to our computer via Bluetooth. So it's really cool. So we can move this around and it's not connected by a cord. So we can move our programs. We have enough space on our desk. We have all different pods. We like to say that the pods are the shape like a computer mouse. So this computer mouse shaped pod for play, which runs our sounds, is white and blue with 2 dials on top. And it's hard to hear, but they make a clicking sound. And there's a flat dial that looks kind of like a donut that we can turn our sound, and we'll see that in action in a minute. A taller dial where we can actually change the speed of our sound. And then there's a cord coming out of one end that we can plug into the hub or to other pods. And on the opposite side of that is a port where we can plug other pods in. It's kind of ends up looking kind of like a train, where the train cars are connected to each other. So our pods form this chain of all these different sounds. We have a pod that's similar that will put a pause, make it wait time so it's silent for a few beats. A loop pod, which is really cool, where we can make things loop, go round again and again. And we're not going to be using these ones today, so I'm not going to go into great detail of how they work. A selection pod that has multiple dials, plugs, all these great tools in here. But I just want to really focus on right now on our play pods. So Beth, will you tell us about our first super cool activity that we're going to be doing? So, but before she does, remember that be active in the chat. We want to hear all of your ideas and your input on how to build these programs, because we've done this a lot. And so we want to see you all putting in a lot of your information. So Beth, tell us about our first activity.
Okay, so CJ is our alien life form that has come down to Earth, and he has been introduced to one of, I know, my students and my children's favorite types of food, pizza. Not everybody here might like pizza. That's okay, because the pizza that CJ is going to learn to make is a little bit different than the typical pizza you might get at a typical pizza place. So CJ has a little bit of a job, and we're going to help CJ in learning how to make pizza and learning how much the toppings cost and whether or not we have enough money to purchase the pizza that we want to make. So let's see, on this screen, CJ, this is a really cute picture of CJ. He looks a little bit maniacal, like he's really, really excited, because in the air are pepperoni and mushrooms and olives and pizza slices, like kind of bouncing in the air around him. And then there's a big flat pizza crust right in front of him. He's wearing an apron and a chef's hat. So he kind of looks like he's making a mess, which I think maybe if he was in the pizzeria, he might be making a mess. His mouth is open and he's probably making a lot of noise, like yippee, or maybe he's tasting things. I'm not sure. We're gonna find out. So we get to direct a little bit of what happens here. We get to decide for CJ what kinds of pizza he's going to make. So Robin, do you want to roll forward to the next page?
CJ at least took off the play pod necklace, not get it full of food.
Oh, that's right. He's not wearing the necklace in that picture. Ah.
All right.
Okay. Right, so here's our pizzeria menu. These might be a little different to some of you. You might not have put them on pizza before. And each topping has a price tag. Each topping costs an amount. And we're going to demonstrate this in a minute. So just hang tight. I'm going to roll through the list of toppings and how much they all cost so you can get an idea of what the options are at this pizzeria. And then we're going to ask you to help us make this pizza with Code Jumper. And we're going to explain a little bit about how this works and helps introduce this concept of coding. So our pizza toppings are mozzarella cheese, which is something I've had on my pizza before, and that costs $1. Potato chips cost $3 if you're going to put potato chips on your pizza. Olives cost $2. Gummy worms cost $4. I don't know if you've ever put gummy worms on your pizza, but I have a feeling next time you have pizza at your house, you might ask. Sprinkles cost $2. Pineapple, which I think some people detest and some people love on pizza. It's controversial, but we put it up here. It's $3 for pepperoni or for pineapple. Pizza sauce is $1 and whipped cream is $1. So those are our toppings. So before we can choose our toppings, we kind of have to know how much money we have to spend. So in order to do this, this is something you can do over and over again if you would like to. We're just going to show you this first round. We have some dice. makes it kind of like a game. We're gonna roll the dice. Robin's gonna roll the dice, and the dice is gonna tell us how much money we have. Robin, how many dice do you have?
I have 2 dice.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
students in the chat, while I'm rolling this dice, can you tell me if I have 2 standard dice, what is the most amount of money we have to spend? If I have 2 dice.
Oh, they got it right on the.
Yes, Karina says 12. Caleb says
Caleb
12.
got it.
Correct. Right. Very good. Okay, so I'm making my 1. Donnie says 1. Let's see. Okay, so I'm making it and I'm gonna drop them. Drop them. Oh, you know what? We only had $4. I'm gonna do that again. Because we had snake, we had doubles. Okay, we have $7. So I have
a 3 and a 4.
I have a 3 and a 4 on my dice. So that's 7.
$7. All right. What do we get for
Okay.
$7?
So this is what we're going to do. In the chat, I want to see everybody in the next 15 seconds put some ideas of what toppings you think you'd like to put on your pizza. So Beth, you want to just read through the toppings again?
You bet. So mozzarella cheese is $1. Potato chips is $3. Olives is $2. Gummy worms is $4. Sprinkles is $2. Pineapple is $3. Pizza sauce is $1, and whipped cream is $1.
Okay, so far there's just cheese.
What do you think we should put on our pizza for?
So my kiddo likes blueberries on their pizza.
Well, that wasn't on the menu, Robin.
Nope, but that's what my kiddo puts on their pizza. Oh, okay. Okay.
Sauce. Oh, there's a pineapple lover in there. Thank you, William. I'm a pineapple lover too.
Sauce.
Sprinkles.
Whoa. Sprinkles. I'm writing these all down. Pineapple.
A dessert pizza with whipped cream and pineapple.
Oh, that's
gummy worms, cheese, and sprinkles.
Oh, Jessica, I'm with you. Lots and lots of mozzarella cheese. Oh, so good.
Olives and double the cheese. Oh, there's another cheese lover. Whipped cream and sprinkles. And then there's just standard sauce, pepperoni, and cheese. That's, you can't go wrong with a classic. I think that's a good option too.
Okay, so this first round, let's see here. Beth, what do you think? Let's do our top ones. What was our number one item we had?
Should we start with a savory and then move on?
Yeah, I think so.
Should we do sauce?
Yeah, everybody wants sauce. I saw a lot of sauces in there.
Sauce.
Okay, so I have my notebook here and I'm writing it down. So I have sauce and I saw a lot of cheese. Everybody agree with cheese?
Yeah, lots of cheese. Mozzarella cheese. And the sauce, Robin, was $1. And the mozzarella cheese is $1.
And mozzarella cheese is $1.
So now we're up to $2. We got a lot of room now. Let's see.
Okay. All right. So we have up to 7 to spend. So you know what I've seen a lot is whipped cream. Okay, let's go whipped cream.
We'll do savory and sweet.
Oh yeah. And how much is whipped cream?
$1.
$1. Okay. Okay, so far we have sauce, cheese, whipped cream, and whipped cream and sprinkles. Maybe next pizza we should be a sweet after. So maybe should we take whipped cream off of this one and make a dessert one afterwards?
Oh, I don't know.
Or we can.
CJ likes it mixed up.
Yeah, I think so. Okay, so in the chat, will you guys write how much we have spent so far? We have sauce at $1, cheese at $1, whipped cream at $1. How much have we spent and how much do we have left?
Oh, three. Oh, wow.
Yep. So we have 3. So how much do we have more? We have 4 to go.
Oh,
okay.
Donna, you're ahead of the curve. She knew what our next question was going to be. She already answered it. Should we have 4 left?
Okay. So let's go through the costs. We already have cheese. So potato chips are $3. olives are 2, gummy worms are 4, sprinkles are 2, and pineapple are 3. So with those $4, what do we want to put on there? We have $4 to spend. Donna says olives. The olives are $2. Okay, let's throw in olives.
Summer says
Olives.
worms. Oh, there's a, hold on. Gummy worms takes
Oh,
longer to
okay.
write in the chat, Robin. So give them a minute. And
Pineapple.
so does pineapple.
All right.
Olives, worms, pineapple. Yeah, I think it's a tie.
No.
Can we do worms and olives? How much is that?
Worms are $4 and olives are $2.
No, no.
You know
So-
what? I've seen mostly olives. No, but Emerald says no olives. No olives.
Or she said
Oh.
olives and then no.
No. Okay. Well, I say let's save our gummy worms for our next pizza.
Okay, so let's do olives then.
Olives. Okay. So now we have our pizza toppings, and we have $2. We don't have to spend all of it. So let's
No,
just
we
go
can
with this
save-
one. Let's just go
All
with
right. Let's stick to four toppings: sauce, cheese, whipped cream, and olives.
We Emerald says you can't do olives and worms.
Oh, I don't
That's what you
know.
always
You could probably slice one through the middle of the olive. That it would at least look fun and festive. You could maybe write something out on it. Every bite's a new adventure.
Okay, so now let's actually build our pizza. We've decided, but you can't. Let's think about it. And Emerald, you're right. We don't have enough money for that. So I'm going to build the program for us. So from our hub, I am going to first change my sound sets. I have all these different sound sets in there. So I go up in the app and I click on red one. You can also use keyboard and tab over. And I'm going to click on that. And then I'm going to go to my custom sounds. These are custom sound sets that you can put in, because you can put any sounds you want into CodeJumper. And I clicked on pizzeria. I clicked OK. So what I'm going to do is take my blue play pod and I'm going to plug
Hold
it
on,
in.
Robin. If people are wanting to do this at home, do they have the option to get pizzeria as a custom sound set yet?
Not yet. No.
But it will be. So if you don't see it there today, that's okay. Just hang tight, because I think it's coming soon. Or you can create your own custom sound set. We've already created one that's called Pizzeria. So I don't want them to be confused that they can't find that.
It's not there yet. So you guys get the sneak preview of all of this, because it's not out yet. All right. So I'm going to take this play pod. I'm going to take the cord with the plug, and I'm going to plug it into the thread one on the front of the hub. And so we heard the click, so we know it's connected. Okay, and so to find what I want, so the first thing we need on our pizza is sauce. Yes. So I'm going to turn the sound dial, and I'm going to go to. Oh, that doesn't sound right. So that does not sound what sauce would sound like. Oh. Twinkle. What's up? Whoa, pineapple. Nope. That's cutting a pineapple. Gummy worm. What do you think that is, Beth?
That's whipped cream. I know that sound.
Yeah. Oh, wait. I'm going to turn this slow. Whoa. Does that sound like pizza sauce? I think that sounds like pizza sauce. Let's play it again. You squeeze it out onto the onto your pizza. That's the sauce. Okay. So now we have our pizza sauce. So what are we going to put on next? What do you guys think? Throw in the chat. What do you think the next one should be?
Well, can you put the little board back up? So I can't even remember what we decided. We said sauce. Cheese.
Cheese.
Whipped cream
Yep.
or olive.
Donnie says cheese. Caleb says cheese. Okay, great. So I'm going to take my play pod, the second one, and I'm going to plug it into that first play pod. Okay, we heard our click, and we need to have the cheese sound. Oh, gummy worm, whipped cream, pizza sauce, mozzarella. So if you aren't sure what, Beth, how would you know what the names of these are without the sound? Remember how to do that?
Oh, yeah, yeah. So if you're not sure if some of the sounds are, you're not sure exactly which one connects to what, exactly which topping, and with different sound sets, it might be harder or easier. But the sound inside the app has the word written down. And so if you want to hear what is written down in the app on that line of code, you would push the play and the stop button on the hub at the same time together, or in the app, scroll over and select play up at the very top of the app.
Or read.
Or sorry, read, my bad.
Yeah. Okay.
Read, and it will read the code aloud. So we should do that and let them see or hear which code or which sounds come first and how it is displayed as a code.
Thread 1 pizzeria. Play pizza sauce half speed. Play mozzarella 2 times speed. End thread.
All right, so that's fast mozzarella, 2 times speed. So we can change that. That is some stretchy cheese. Okay, so let's go back and look and see what we chose. So we have sauce, cheese, whipped cream, which is great. So I'm going to take the third play pod. So now we have a chain. I have the hub, a play pod playing pizza sauce, a play pod playing mozzarella, and there's our third one. And so I'm going to turn and find whipped cream. Oh, that's gummy worm.
That's whipped cream.
Yeah. So that's whipped cream. So now we
If you
have.
want to check it, you could hit the play and stop button at the same time and just double check that the last play says whipped cream.
Thread 1 pizzeria. Play pizza sauce half speed. Play mozzarella half speed. Play whipped cream half speed.
There we go.
End thread.
So we're almost done with what's our last, anybody remember what our last topping is that we were going to? There was some debate on what it is. Do you guys remember what it is? Olives, right. We got olives. So I'm gonna plug in my fourth play pod into the port on the third play pod. And that's not the right topping sound. So olives is interesting. So do olives really have a sound? I wouldn't think so.
Well, they do when I put them on my fingers and then suck them.
Yeah, that is true.
Sound when I pull them off my fingers.
Yep, they make the pizza. Nope, mozzarella. Nope, potato chips. Oh, pop. Make that pop sound.
Yep.
So now we have olives. Okay, now we've created our pizza. So
okay, I have to interrupt you, Robin.
Yeah.
Everybody should hear, if they can't identify what you're doing. You're tracing the code. You just did it automatically, Robin. It's so habitual for you, right? It's just like second nature. When you want to know which pod is playing which sound, use your fingers from the hub as it plays and follow along with the chords and the pods as each sound is played, so that you know if you have a mistake or if you want to switch something, you'll know you'll be touching the pod that needs to change or the pod that's playing that sound. Sorry, you're just doing it, Robin. You just know
okay.
it.
So I'm gonna play our code. Let's just check out our pizza we made. Pizza. Mozzarella. Olives. Okay, how many of you guys would actually want to eat this pizza? Anybody want to eat it? I'm seeing radio silence on that. Oh, Amanda says nope. Oh, Donna does, Donnie does, Caleb says never. I'm with you. I'm not so sure about the whipped cream and olives. Karina does. That is awesome. Okay, so for time's sake, should we move on to treasure hunt? What do you think?
Unless somebody wants to ask a question about making the pizza game.
Yes.
Maybe before we move on.
I don't think this pizza is gonna be a big seller in our pizza store, Beth.
No, but I bet the dessert pizzas would do well.
I think so too.
Yeah. Cheese and whipped cream, sprinkles.
Anybody have any questions about making pizzas? And there's more to it in the actual, this is just a sampling. There's more things to do in the actual puzzle. We just wanted to give you guys a little bit of a sneak peek of what you can do.
And if you're already familiar with coding, but you're not familiar with CodeJumper, you might be starting to make some of those connections that when you add a pod, a line of code shows up in the app, and that you can, well, when we get into a little more detail, get a little more advanced with the kinds of things you want to choose.
So Donnie has a really good question. He goes, how long do I bake it? Wow. With the whipped cream, the olives, I don't know. Yeah.
Put the whipped cream on after you bake it.
I think so. Maybe I'd say 20 minutes baking, check it, another 10, and then add the whipped cream later. So Megan asks, is there a way to play with the app even if you do not have the physical parts? You can look at the app, you can see how it is, but you won't be able to hear any of the sounds without the physical CodeJumper. And Caleb's asking, how do I get the sound hub? And that comes with the kit and all the pods. It all comes together.
All right.
Yeah. And Summer, quick question, is CodeJumper I should start without any experience? It is a great place to start. It really is, because it's that physical, you can actually tactily feel and see the coding. And we're not getting into the loop pod, but that's a great one to really understand how loops are. So yeah, it is an amazing place. So one computer science term that we use is sequencing, that we use in our life every day. And this is about sequencing. We're putting one thing after another. So when you make a pizza, you can't put the sauce on the tray, then the pizza crust on top. The crust comes first and then the sauce. So that order matters. And when you're making a pizza, it's the same thing. So you're learning a lot of those sequencing algorithm skills when you are building pizzas. All right. Okay, so what I did is I unplugged those 4 play pods from the hub, which actually, if you think about it, the hub is the pizza crust. The pizza crust is the hub, right? Okay.
It is shaped round.
All right. So I am going to.
Should we tell them about the treasure hunt?
Yes. Oh, so there's. Okay. Yeah. Tell about the treasure hunt.
Go. So on this screen right here, CJ is looking for a treasure. It says, where be the treasure? He has a pirate hat on. He has a hook on one of his arms, like a pirate hook. It has CodeJumper is around his neck. And there's an open treasure chest with a lot of gold pieces right in front. So this little puzzle is about hunting for the treasure, and that's the goal at the end of the puzzle.
Right. Okay, so let's go back to CodeJumper, and there we go. Okay, so just like we had for our pizzeria, we also have basically a book with all of the information you need to do the puzzle. So on the front page of the CodeJumper puzzle book for the treasure is CodeJumper, and it's CJ with his same pirate hat on, but he actually has a spyglass, or it looks kind of like a binocular, a really big binocular. And
looking at the wrong picture, Robin.
What?
I was looking at the one where he's in front of the treasure chest.
Oh yeah, that was in the PowerPoint. So there's this one too.
Okay.
And it's really neat is that in the end of his spyglass you can see a deserted island with a nice palm tree swaying in the breeze, and he's pointing to the land. And what do you think CJ would be saying if he's looking through a spyglass or binocular and pointing? I have in my head what I think he'd be saying. Put in the chat what you think CJ would be saying if he's leaning over the side of a boat and at a desert island. So I'm going to scroll down, and we're going to get to our treasure map. Exactly. Whoa. Land ho. Let's see here. Okay, So this is what we're going to do. We have on the screen right now, we have our Code Jumper app. We have our camera with all of our Code Jumper pieces. And then on the left side, we actually have a treasure map with 8 clues. And 8 is an important number because in Code Jumper, you can have 8 sounds in a sound set. So everybody get your fingers ready because we need to see all of your answers in the chat to answer each clue. What we're going to do for this one is a little bit different. I have these plugs. So these are plugs. So in the top of the pods, in the play pod, both the sound dial and the speed dial, there's a little port in there. And I have these little plugs, they're purple. And on top, they have a raised dot with 1 dot for the number 1, 2 for 2, all the way up to 8. So they're kind of built like dice, the way the top of the dice, the plugs feel. And when I put this plug, ooh, shivering timbers. Oh, that's distracting me. I like that. When I put this plug into the port on top, it tells me what sound to play. It'll say, Code Jumper, play the sound that's in slot 1. Each sound has its own slot in the sound set. So what we're going to do is answer the questions, these clues, to find out what the treasure is. And then we're going to build our program and we're going to find out what the treasure is. So Beth, you want to read clue number 1?
You bet. Clue number 1. The map says to take half a dozen steps. How many steps is this? How many steps is half a dozen steps? There are some quick fingers out there. A lot of people are putting it into the chat. Half a dozen. Okay, a lot of people are saying 6, Robin.
All right, so what I'm going to do.
A dozen is 12, and so half of 12 is 6.
Fantastic. So I'm going to take my purple plug, called a constant plug, because a constant is a number. If you think about math, constant is like 1 through infinity. And I'm going to take the one that has 6 dots on top, and I'm going to insert it into the first sound pod dial. I'm not plugging it into Code Jumper quite yet. Okay, why don't you read the second clue?
The next task is to spin around the same number of times as fingers you have on one hand. How many times do you need to spin around? So how many fingers on one hand? You spin around the same number of times as fingers that you have on one hand. So there might be people with different numbers of fingers. A lot of people have 5 fingers on each hand. Number 2, sorry. 5, 5, 5. Lots of 5s, Robin.
All right, okay, let's go with 5. Okay, so I have a 5 on my little purple plug, and I'm gonna stick that into the sound dial. Okay, next clue.
The map tells you to gather wheels for a cart to carry the treasure in. How many wheels do you need? You need wheels for a cart. How many wheels do you think you need? 5 phalanges, 4 fingers and a thumb.
Right, that is accurate.
You are correct. You're right. 4. A lot of people are saying 4. They must not be imagining a wheelbarrow, which I kind of agree. I think I'd want at least 4. Some people, 2. Should we go with 4, Robin?
Let's go with 4. And so this is where it gets tricky. So if you choose a different number, then you have to go back and debug with finding your error. So I'm going to insert 4 into the third play pod's sound dial. Okay, let's go with number
4.
Number 4.
The next step on the treasure map tells you to roll the cart forward, not 8 feet forward, not 6 feet forward, but the number you would find in between. How many feet do you roll the cart? So you're going to roll the cart forward, not 8 feet and not 6 feet, but the number you would find in between. Oh, consensus on this one.
Absolutely.
I see a lot of number 7s.
All right.
Do you have a 7? Do you have a 7 plug, Robin?
I do. I have a 7 plug. It looks like a 6, and then in the middle row there's an extra dot. So I'm going to put that into our 4th play pod.
Into the sound dial. Yeah.
Sound dial.
Okay. Clue number 5. Where you stopped the cart is a pile of tools. You pick a shovel up in each hand. How many tools do you have? 2, 2, 2, 2. Lots of 2s.
All right. Okay. So I don't have enough play pods connected together, so I'm going to add in another one and put in the number 2 constant into the sound dial. All right. What's next?
Number 6. You are getting so close to the end. Now that you have your tools, it is time to figure out where to dig. This clue tells you to walk 4 steps with each foot. What is the total number of steps you need to take? 4 steps with each foot. Okay, I'm seeing a lot of 8s.
All right. So I'm going to add in another play pod to the end. And
this is different because we haven't connected it to the plug yet, or sorry, to the hub. So this train that Robin is making right now is how many pods do we have together now?
We have 6.
We have 6 of them looped together, but they're not connected to the hub yet. We're going to do it all at once at the end and see if we can find our treasure.
Right. All right. So we have 6 done.
Okay. Are you ready for clue number 7?
We are.
X marks the spot. If this is a treasure map, how many X's should you find? This is a typical treasure map.
Right.
How many X's will there be on the map?
I bet you anything there's treasure maps that have X's all over the place.
They might have, yeah, if they have more than one treasure, or they're trying to be sneaky and lead you astray.
So Summer, you said 6. Are you hopeful that there's 6 different treasures available? I'm with you.
Yeah, most people said 1 though, because a typical map probably has 1 X that actually has the treasure where that X is.
Okay, so I'm going to put a 1 into the sound dial of play pod number 7.
All right, are you ready for the last clue?
I think so.
Last clue, number 8. So this should be the 8th play pod. Start digging, dig down 2 less than 5 feet. How many feet do you dig down? Dig down 2 less than 5 feet. How many feet do you dig down? Ooh, this is a fast group.
I know, right?
I'm done reading and they already have the answers in. I see a lot of 3s.
Perfect.
5.
Okay, let's see how it goes. I'm going to
Did
plug
you
in
find
the
the
play
3?
pod. I found the last constant plug is a 3. Putting it into the sound dial.
The last play pod. All right, so now we have 8 play pods, right?
Yes.
In a row?
Yeah. I'm going to mute myself for 2 seconds because I know something, I need to fix something. So give me 2 seconds because I had this set up differently, okay? So why don't you entertain?
That's okay. If there are any quick questions, you can pop into the chat for a moment. But this is unlike how a lot of the lessons go in Code for a lot of times.
You are not muted, Robin, if you don't want to hear us.
Oh, sorry, I hit the wrong.
You have to stop sharing to mute.
Okay. Okay, let me stop sharing for just one moment. Worth it.
Hey, Beth, I wonder if people can guess what the treasure actually is.
Oh, anybody have an idea what they think the treasure might be? An iPad. Oh, that would be great. iPad would be a great treasure. I think in the picture there was some coins, some gold coins. That might be kind of a cool treasure. Anybody have another idea for what? Oh, World Series tickets. Yes, that would be awesome, Sauce. I'd be all over World Series tickets.
That would be fun. Okay, I'm back. Okay, so we're going to look at this for a minute before we press play. So I'm going to change my thread. So we use a different sound set, which is treasure, from pizzeria to treasure. Okay, so I'm actually just going to read the code. I just want everybody to listen as I read the code.
Thread 1 treasure. Play constant, 6, 2 times speed. Play constant, 5, 2 times speed. Play constant, 4, 2 times speed. Play constant, 7, 2 times speed. Play constant, 2, 2 times speed. Play constant, 8, 2 times speed. Play constant, 1, 2 times speed. Play constant, 3, 2 times speed. End thread.
All right, so what it told us that we had a constant plugged in, so we knew that. And then it said the number of the constant, but that's not always the case. It actually can say the name of the sound in there, but I didn't want you guys to know what it was until we actually played the code. So the name of the sound can be different than what you actually hear. So what we're going to do is I'm going to press play and let's see what we get for our treasure that we spent all that time finding and then we had to dig up. So I'm going to press play.
Inside the treasure chest lies riches of gold, silver, and jewels.
Does that sound kind of funny?
It's a little hard to hear.
Yeah, so I'm going to actually change the tall dial to normal.
Inside the treasure chest lies riches of gold, silver.
Ooh, wait a minute, that's really slow. So you can actually change how it sounds. So I'm going to go to normal speed.
Silver.
Let's see.
And jewels.
All right. So I'm going to press it one more time.
Inside the treasure chest lies riches of gold, silver, and jewels.
Ooh, so that was what was in the treasure chest. So I think that we need to know from all of our participants what you all think. If you had gold, silver, and jewels, what are you gonna do with that? Are you gonna sell all that and then buy an iPad? What would you do with riches of gold, silver, and jewels? Donnie's gonna sell them.
Oh, what if you could get World Series tickets for it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So this treasure, this hunt, we actually had to do some debugging. Debugging is finding an error in your program and then fixing it. Oh, Chester's gonna buy Furbies. Woohoo! I like that idea. Jessica's gonna go on a shopping spree. Sounds good to me. That's fantastic. So in this puzzle, we're learning about constants, and that those numbers are fixed numbers, which you learn all about in Algebra 1 and pre-algebra. Amanda's going to buy a new computer. Summer's going to buy a horse farm. Wow, these are great. Maybe we should really like see if we can find the buried treasure somewhere. Oh, Amanda, I'm with you. Snacks. So those
Now
are
this, as an introduction, if you're not super familiar with coding, this might be tricky, but if you are familiar with coding, you can see that the name of each sound on the app, when we heard it read aloud, was a name. It was different than what was played aloud. And that is a sneaky way to make a new puzzle. And since you can make your own sound sets, you have the option to do something similar. And I think it's so fun when students make their own games. I think this is an endless option of games that could come out of here. And you could play this again and see if your friends or your parents or your teachers can actually find the treasure with this sound set.
Oh, and Donna put in the chat to get a farm with mastiffs. Isn't that pretty close to a farm with horses? They're about the same size.
We had a mastiff that lived next door, Penelope.
So those are our two puzzles that we're going to do today. There's a lot more that are coming out. And also, if you have CodeJumper, if you use CodeJumper, you can create your own, like Beth said. So there's the opportunities are endless. So now we have some questions for you. Okay, Beth, you want to do a trivia?
Yeah, I am curious how many people know the answer to this. How many jobs are there in computer science today? Does anybody have a guess of how many jobs there are in computer science today? 2022.
Jobs that are available.
Jobs available in the world. Is it world or US?
I think it's in US, in our country.
Many, many, many. Somebody thinks 100. A gazillion. Oh, this is a smart group already. I mean, 1,000. Computer science is growing so fast that even in fields where there didn't used to need to be a computer scientist, now almost everybody needs someone familiar with computer science. So Robin, what is the answer to how many jobs there are in computer science today?
There are right now, there are just open are 1.4 million open jobs.
Open jobs, like jobs where somebody wants to hire someone.
There are so many.
They don't have a person.
Yes.
Yeah, they're trying to find someone who can fill that position. Yeah.
Yes. It goes all the way from a little tiny company that needs an IT person to just run their computers and do updates, to coders, to innovators and creators. So there are, and I think gazillion is more accurate. It's always growing. So it's something to think about and explore as an opportunity. Okay, next question.
What year was CodeJumper released?
Ooh.
Anybody know? Some of you said you were already a little bit familiar with CodeJumper. The puzzles, I'll give you a hint. The puzzles were released 2022. Some of them haven't been released yet, right? Like a few of them are still coming out.
Well, no, none of them have yet.
None of them have come out yet, but you are getting to see them today, which is exciting. It's preview. Oh,
2018, 2019. Yeah, I would say that's accurate. 2019. All right, and
the last one is how many jobs use computers? Is it all of the jobs, some of the jobs, or no jobs, like none of the jobs? How many jobs use computers? Almost all, some, or none?
We got a lot of answers in there. We got some, we got all of, almost all of, all the jobs, almost
some,
all.
or none. A lot of obstacles. Yep. Nothing is absolute, but
the almost all is yes. Because if you think about it, even if you just are a retail business and you're selling things, you have to use a computer for your transaction because everybody uses a credit card. And there's even if you're doing food delivery, you're using a computer of your phone. Your car has a computer in it. So everything nowadays, almost everything uses a computer. So
farming. Yep. Raising horses.
Oh yeah.
Yep. There's a lot about raising horses. You would need to buy, get a hold of the vet, buy certain medicines and foods, and a lot of that's going to need a computer.
Absolutely. So we have about 4 minutes, so I'd love to hear questions from all of you that we can answer about CodeJumper, about coding, about CJ, whatever you want to ask. We would love to answer them for you.
I want to know when you're going to make me that pizza, Robin.
I think everybody's thinking about what they're going to spend that treasure money on. So, CJ. So go ahead, Beth.
How old is CJ is one of the questions.
Oh, we don't know.
Alien life forms might have a different way to calculate age. Like we calculate age based on 365 days around the sun. But if they live on another planet, I don't actually know how they calculate age. That would be so fun to hear a story or a thesis, a philosophy from you. Who was that?
That was Donnie.
Donnie. You could be a little creative and help us come up with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And Summer asks, how do I get CodeJumper? If you go to codejumper.com, put that in there, and all the information is available there, and the link to the APH site for that. You can find out all the information on how to get a CodeJumper. It is available in quota, and so all the prices and everything are all listed on the CodeJumper website. And plus a lot more resources too. The entire curriculum is there, all those different pieces. Karina asks, how useful is a CodeJumper app? Very useful. You have to have the app to make CodeJumper work. So yes, it is very useful. And I like it too, because you can see it as block coding form, as well as the auditory tactile. So you can see them all together in one place of how it works and experience them in tactile, visual, auditory.
And you have to have the app to be able to put in sound sets and choose the different sound sets. So you can't really play or build the puzzles or stuff without it. You're going to have the app to be able to choose some of those things.
So I'll answer Max's question, and then Beth, you want to quickly answer Dane. So Max, yes. So basically, the hub is a Bluetooth speaker. So all your computer audio is going to go to the Bluetooth speaker. So you can actually change that if you go into the settings for your sound and choose your computer if you'd rather have it go through your computer and not through CodeJumper. So it basically becomes an external speaker.
And Dane asked, what exactly is coding? That is a great question. Coding is kind of like a language to talk to computers. And there is a whole science about how to learn about talking to computers. And the way that we have been playing with CodeJumper helps us by understanding little tiny pieces of that language, block by block or line by line. When we say line, it means just like when you're reading a book, there's a line of text or a little bit of sound that comes. And so coding is very similar. You might program something, you might boss around a robot with coding. You might tell your phone to call someone with coding. And the coding is the behind the scenes language that talks to the computer, because I don't really speak computer language. And so if I want to tell my computer to do something, I need to be able to code it. Now, a lot of things that we use every day actually have coding behind it. We just only use the part that's been translated for us humans to kind of understand. And so if you want to help program new things or understand how to do that with those robots, excuse me, that's where the coding comes in. It's kind of like translating a language a little bit. And the Code Jumper games and puzzles and the curriculum that we have, if you end up going through it, you will learn a lot about computer science and how coding relates to that. I hope that answered your question. Did that answer your question, Summer? What do you use coding for? Awesome. Okay. You bet.
All right.
Okay, thank you, Robin and Beth. Hold on, let me add my spotlight. That was great. Now I want to pet a fluffy CJ, which looks sort of like a cat-ish to me. I don't know if that's what it is, but I guess he's an alien. He can look like anything. To me, he looks like a cat. So, and Adrian, would you like to introduce our next person? And we are welcoming back our teachers to join us.
Absolutely. Thank you, Leanne. Thank you, Robin and Beth. So much has gone into those CJ lessons. So much thought and effort in making the lessons build upon each other and cascade skills into this wonderful, wonderful environment where kids can really jump into coding. And so much from APH. Thank you for the beauty of it. You know, it doesn't hurt when something looks sharp and comes with a bright and colorful combination in addition to good quality lessons. We just found out that we will not have Jason Martin from the Center for Assistive Technology Training at the Alabama Institute for Deaf and Blind. I do encourage those of you, especially in the 9-state area that they support down there out of Alabama, to look into their center, the CATT Center. They're doing some wonderful things in coordination with APH. And getting technology into the hands of students and a train the trainer model for teachers. We do thankfully have Amanda Rodda, a TVI and a math and STEM teacher with the Washington State School for the Blind. I've been fortunate to be connected with Amanda for a few years through the AT Forum for Schools for the Blind, and as well as outreach efforts from Schools for the Blind. And Amanda is truly a leader in our field as a teacher in bringing math, science, tech, coding to life for her students. And Amanda, I'm excited for you to take the lead on this next session and hopefully getting some perspective from students in these Code Jumper activities from the 2022 National Coding Symposium.
Hey, thanks, Adrian. I think that was a little I don't know, that was the best intro I've ever heard. Thank you so much.
Well deserved.
Gonna blush a little bit over here first. All right. So good almost afternoon for everybody. I'm really sad that Jason can't join us. Jason and I have known each other for about 10 or 12 years, somewhere in that range. So yeah, if you are in the southern region, please reach out to them and get some great ideas and information from him. He's a great TVI. He's a great guy. I'll have to check in with him later as to why he's not here. Give him some nice nudges of grief for ditching me. My plan was to have a couple of my students join us today, and last week was state testing, so the kids were all very stressed out last week and just didn't feel like they could do it. So I got just comments and remarks from them on the activities that we did with Code Jumper and the activities we've done for a while with Code Jumper. So I will give you a few of those nuggets, and then happy to do questions and answers. I know there are a lot of questions there at the end of Robin's session just now about coding in general, and I will be happy to help answer some of those computer science questions too.
Amanda,
Yeah.
Robin also is stuck on and is staying on.
I
and
see
so
that.
You now have a counterpart
Excellent.
in leading this session.
Hi, Robin.
Thank you, Robin.
Hello.
Nice to see you again.
Thank you.
So I usually teach AP level computer science, and that is a class that you can take in high school that can give you college credit. Summer, I think the last session ran over a little bit. You could take a break now if you wanted to, hon. So I usually teach a class for high schoolers that's called AP Computer Science Principles, or that's like the one main class they make sure I teach every year. And that's a pretty intensive class, so I don't think we probably have a lot of high schoolers with us today, but we might. And there's a lot of teachers working on teaching that class, and it can give you some college credit once you get to that level. But a great way to start out is with CodeJumper. I've had a lot of fun working with CodeJumper with my kids, and even my high schoolers like playing and learning on it with some of the basics and the idea of things. So last week, like I said, it was our state testing week, and we had kids who weren't testing at various points throughout the day. So they were able to cycle through my room, and about 15, 20 kids came through and got to work through the CodeJumper lesson that was for the one that was put up for the symposium this year. We also had some other activities that I just like to make up and have them do. So they went through my activity first, which was we turned on the Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, that sound. I always set it up so it was in thread 1 all the way to the left for everybody. And we just learned how all the different pods work. We connected them together. And their first task was making it say Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, right? That's pretty easy. And one of the kids, my favorite comment was, "This is a baby song. Why do I have to do this song?" So we flipped the sound over to tools because he loves tools. And I said, "Now, how can you tell me that this is going in the right order? It doesn't have a sequence. It doesn't follow a pattern." And so he begrudgingly went back to Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star to show me that he could follow the steps in order with the rest of the class. But we did talk about how in his next session, we're going to load in some of our own sounds. So he's going to do that in his next class with me. After we did the Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, we learned about the loop pod, which is one of my favorite things to learn about is the loop pod. Yes. Thank you, Robin. I'm at home today. I don't have my CodeJumper with me.
I'm happy to share anything. I can share a screen if you want to show anything. I can draw.
I call the loop pod to help some of my kids find it the yellow one, because if you can see color, they are color coded. And I say it has 2 tails and 1 knob. So that's our loop pod. And I bet some of you already know what a loop is, especially if you were just in the last group. Pretty sure they used a loop. Anybody want to shout out what a loop is for me? I got no takers. I bet they all went on break. How about any of the teachers know what a loop is? How about if we think about the word loop, what picture comes to mind? What shape? If you're going in a loop. Oh, Robin.
Well, oh, there we go.
There we go. A circle. There we go. We were just a little slower. Yes, it repeats a command. It's a circle. And when you use it on CodeJumper, it makes a circle of your code. You plug the loop into the hub or into the last bit of code you had, and then you plug all the pods you want to have repeat into the loop. And then you plug the end of the loop into the end of your code, and it'll make a great circle for you. And that's actually one of the things one of my students who's never done, I can't believe it, I've had her for 4 years, and she's never done any programming or coding activities with me until last week. And that was her big things. Not quite, Rosanna. Maybe we'll talk about that in just a second.
Where she's going with that.
I see where you're going. But this one student, she was so excited that she understood exactly where the code was going because she could trace those pods in a loop. And she got so excited about it that she cranked it up to 8. And we heard Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star 8 times. So the code jumper loop can go up to 8. And it will repeat whatever's in that loop between 1 and 8 times. Now, a repeat of 1 time is not very helpful or very fun at all, right? It's just going to do it 1 time and stop. But, all right, so Rosanna said continues till the value is 0. And that really depends. With Code Jumper, I don't think it quite works that way. It counts up until it hits the number you asked it to do. But when you're using some other programming languages, yes, you can you can totally use repeat until and repeat while. Code Jumper just doesn't quite dip into that idea quite yet. But you're right on some of your other block-based languages and definitely all of your industry-based, typing-based ones. So once we did our loop, we were super excited about looping, and then I let everybody play with the sounds, and we had quite the cacophony going on. Hang on just a second, folks.
I think there's some students. So yeah, so I have the loop pod here all connected. We didn't do that in the last session, but we saw how everything was connected from the play pods to the hub that made that go to run our program.
Yeah. Let's see, other cool things about it. My students who are totally blind, they have no vision at all, were able to work right with all of the students who had some vision. They could work right together and interact in the same activity. I didn't have to split my class up with kids who could see the project and kids who couldn't see the project. Everybody got to work right together. And I did. When they came in the room, I just said, table 1, 2, 3, table 1, 2, 3, and we were set up in pairs because I only had 3 working code jumpers at the time. Ran out of batteries. So we set up in pairs at the tables. And that was really neat for some of the kids because they hadn't gotten to do that kind of interacting with somebody else on this really neat hands-on project. And they really liked being able to do that. I was also able to very, very easily mix my 6th through 12th graders into that same project. I had a 6th grader working with an 11th grader. And there was enough for each of them to learn and do, to learn from each other and to have a good time with this very small project we were working on. And the 6th grader was very excited because they got to work with this 10th grader, and they're just not usually in the same classes, right? Not often do we have 6th and 10th grade in the same class together. And then some of my kids who had already done programming, my kids who were in that college class, that AP class, just had fun doing Code Jumper or doing coding in a different way. We have, what is Code Jumper again? All right, I'm going to let Robin do her elevator spiel because she's much better at it than I am.
I've done it a time.
And she's got all the toys she can show you on her screen.
Right, so I can quickly share. And so
yeah,
Code Jumper, just to let's see, share my screen. Make sure I have sound. Okay. Now we'll just throw Code Jumper up there. Code Jumper is the physical coding language that we use for students, usually who are younger, as a beginning coding experience for our kids. So on the screen, you can see it, I have the hub, which is the basically it's a Bluetooth speaker that connects to your computer and the CodeJumper app that basically runs the program. So the hub is where everything begins. It's the speaker. We have our play button where we can run our code, stop our code. And on the front, left to right, we have these ports where we can plug in the pods. So PlayPod is a pod where we can write our lines of quote unquote, our lines of code that's mouse shaped with 2 dials. We have one dial that's kind of looks like a donut, short and flat and has ridges, and then a tall dial that has vertical ridges on it that can change our the speed of our sound. So then when
I call it the short fat dial too.
Short fat dial. I don't know what else it would be. So then when we connect them all together, we've written a line of code, and on our app, it shows block coding that you can see that you see like in Scratch or Make Code, all the different programs. And then each pod is a line of code. So I'm going to press play and we're going to hear this code that we created for the last session.
Inside the treasure chest lies riches of gold, silver, and jewels.
So that's it. Each one of those little phrases was a sound in the sound set that each of these pods played, and we can change the speed.
Inside the.
And so we can manipulate it so we can have the code exactly the way we want it. And we have all sorts of different pods. Amanda mentioned the loop pod, and we have the selection pod, which is an if-else statement in order to create basic coding programs in a physical way. So that is the basics of CodeJumper. In a nutshell.
Back, Donnie, you're fine, bud. All right. Yeah. So does anybody else have any questions like that? Like what I'm talking about with the CodeJumper? The age group. Well, I've used it with 6 through 12 and they love it. So
originally it's designed for 7 to 11 years old. So our beginning coding, but like Amanda said, you can use it for everything. So I had an 8th grader, it was either an 8th or 9th, and he was really getting stuck on loops because he was using Python and a screen reader user, and all of the parentheses, he just wasn't able to really wrap his head around what actually that meant, because it just wasn't making sense. So we took out CodeJumper and we're like, well, let's build a loop. And so we built a program, super simple program, but he was able to trace the code and say, oh, okay. So I like to think I love thinking about CodeJumper in terms of O&M, because if you're traveling, you're going traveling. So you're walking down the street, you get to a loop, and it's like going around a cul-de-sac a whole bunch of times, you're going again and again, and then you continue on your way. So he was able to go, oh, okay, and take that information he learned by having it physically displayed in front of him, and then take it into the text-based coding. And it helped them out so much. So such a great supplement to our older kids, regardless of what level of coding they have.
yeah, exactly. And it's something that, again, I really like that all students can use, whether you've got no vision, low vision, or if you're a TVI with a kid in a classroom, you know, you can encourage the classroom to use CodeJumper, and everybody can get the exact same lesson at the exact same time and have that true integration with your student, and learn these great concepts. Because, you know, like Robin said, you've got a late middle schooler, early high schooler who just doesn't understand the idea of something like loop or conditionals, saying if this then that, you know, how does that work when I plug that into a computer? our older kids who are in those text-based languages, there's a lot of things thrown at them for that language, with the syntax, the parentheses and the semicolons and the brackets and the braces and which is which and so you can take that step back to CodeJumper and learn the concept they need to learn if they haven't learned it yet, and then learn the syntax of a new language. And it really helps kind of bridge that in a really fun way.
I agree. And to piggyback on that, and from, in an itinerant setting, I actually got to take CodeJumper into a kindergarten classroom. That was so much fun. So we set them up as stations. So every student in the classroom had access to CodeJumper. And so we had an unplugged activity where it was, I can't remember which one it was, but just some unplugged activity kids would do. Then they moved and they worked on Scratch. And then they went and did CodeJumper, and then they wrote in their computer science journal. And there was one student in this gen ed classroom who was low vision, and he attempted everything. And it was like everything was accessible to him. And the Scratch was definitely challenging, but there were so many opportunities for success. And I think that's my big soapbox, is that CodeJumper really gives every student, regardless of level of vision, from just a gen ed peer to with full vision to someone who is a Braille user with no vision, they have something to connect on. They can do this all together and work simultaneously in a pair and in ways that so many other programs just can't, because you just can't. They can do part, but they can't do all. So I think that is a big, huge piece of that, is the collaboration with anyone.
Yeah, it's that part really for me and for my students. Again, I had that 6th grader and that 10th grader working together. Also, because I know our teachers joined back in for this lesson, so there's the teachers out there. I have classrooms that are our learning support and our self-contained classrooms. So that's my kids with more than just vision diagnoses, usually some other needs going on. And I have taught, it's my favorite class when they let me teach it, my absolute favorite class. I teach an elective just for those students. That is computer science. And when we get to CodeJumper, it is just such a great time, because again, it is designed to be that little bit more simplistic, that little bit lower level, but it's teaching them the exact same concepts as any other 6th through 12th grader starting out learning programming. It really does teach the exact same thing. So it's an excellent differentiation tool. It's great for that. And then last year even, and I again couldn't get permission slip signed, but my students who are using CodeJumper wrote their own songs using CodeJumper, and we recorded them, and they were in the spring concert, because our spring concert was all virtual, so we just added their video clips into it. And they had a great time, because we looked up the songs and we talked about music theory and we talked about what a beat was and the half note, and we talked about all those things that our music teacher helped me with when they were in their class. And then I supported it when they came to my class, and we wrote, one of the kids wrote part of Fleur-de-Lis, and I'm not talking the Fleur-de-Lis or the pre-canned sounds that you can put the song together. They flipped it to piano, or they flipped it to violin, and they chose note by note, beat by beat, how to play part of a song. And it was so cool, and they were so excited that they got to do this and then videotape it and show it off to all their friends.
And that's exactly it. So CodeJumper is, I think one of the brilliances is being able to take all these concepts that we use every day across all of the academics, from math, science, reading, writing, ECC, all of the different curriculums, and use them in CodeJumper. I saw a class where they created their own sound set. They recorded themselves because they were learning about the beginning, middle, and end of a story. So they created the sounds that, and then they created the story by reading their own writing and recording it. and then figuring out, well, this is the beginning of our story, and then the middle ones, and then the end, and then they would build their program, and then they would play it. So these are all core coding concepts of, like we were saying last time, like making a pizza, you have to have the crust first. You can't put the sauce on the pizza sheet and then the crust. You have to do it in the right order, which are critical coding concepts. And debugging, which is one of the favorites of our kiddos, right?
Yeah, and that was a great thing is, you know, when I teach my students the loop, I purposely have them push play before they finish their loop. Did you purposely make a bug in your last session, Robin?
No, because we didn't use the loop. We were doing some other puzzles.
Can you set up a broken loop so we can hear it?
Yeah.
Because it is my favorite gross part of Code Jumper. Because I'm actually like a 12-year-old girl. I'm not a 40-something teacher. So everything that the kids love, oh man, do I love.
Right. I know. Okay.
So Code Jumper has a way while she's setting it up to show you that there's a compiler code error. So that means you haven't plugged everything in right. And something is broken that way, as opposed to you turned it to the wrong sound. Code Jumper can't tell you that itself. That's something you have to physically search for and find the error on, okay? But if you have something broken, like your loop isn't done right, it makes a great noise.
Okay. All right.
All right. Are we ready?
Yes. So I'm going to share so you can see and we can fix it.
So remember that loop has to go in a circle.
Challenging.
All right.
Okay, well, we can see where they are. Okay, so I have a loop pod with one play pod inside the loop. Now I'm going to press play.
How rude. You're supposed to say, excuse me, Robin.
Sorry.
How rude.
Sorry. I will remember that. So the kids love this.
Burps at you. If you have something plugged in wrong, that's just the bug notification in it. And it's so much fun, personally.
And then you go, oh, look. And so if you're noticing in the app that it shows it as an error too, because this play needs to be inside of our loop, but it's not showing it that way. So I'm gonna read the code and see what it does. And it won't even let me read the code because it's like, no, this is not accurate. So then you go, oh, okay, I have to fix this. And then you can play I move the cord from the plug that goes to the rest of the program to the loop. It was in the wrong spot. So then you go,
exactly,
oh,
Max.
And then you press play.
Riches of.
And then it
Riches of.
Oh, my loop is 2 times. Okay, good. It's not 8. All right.
Yeah. So that's a fun part of debugging too, right, guys? You get to hear it burp at you. Max just said it's the best way to tell the user there's an error. I agree. I think all languages should now burp at you when you get a compiler error. I definitely going to support this with the quorum team, which if you are going to be with us on Wednesday, I will tell Andy to add this. Burping noises.
I think you should. I think you could get data and signatures from many of your students to agree that that is the right way to do it.
Yes, we will collect data and implement it into the language. It'd be great.
I think so. And actually, you know, the kids love it. That they actually wait for it. And
yeah, I did. After you introduce it on purpose, teachers, just so you know, you will hear a lot of burping in your classroom because it's fun. I did tell students there was a 2 burp maximum. If they did get an error, they were only allowed to hit play twice in a row so that we didn't just have a chorus of burping. I also put a max on repeat of 4 unless they can show me they need higher than that for their code. So we don't get 8 Twinkle Twinkle Little Stars running. those are just little tips for the teachers who are running the classroom and have multiple of these squawking at them at the same time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's really great.
Do we have any other questions, folks? About coding, about Code Jumper? Max has never run into the Code Jumper. Or we've never run into that sound. It's excellent.
Pretty good.
I have a question for both of you. This is Leanne speaking. When introducing general education teachers to Code Jumper, what did you find most helpful to bring and show the teachers?
Oh, to bring and show the teachers?
Yeah, what you so the kit, it's a big box with stuff. What was the first thing you found you had to do or talk to teachers about when you brought it in?
It can definitely be, I mean, it can definitely be overwhelming for all teachers. And then you open the kit and you're like, there are so many pieces here. And you know, when I introduce them to the teacher, I always start with the hub in the app, because it's like, okay, we have an anchor for it. It's not just these random pieces all over the place. The hub really anchors everything down. And so that is where I start. I start with the hub and say, this is connect, and then hub, and then app, and then play pods. And then what I like to do is, and then compare it to what they're doing in their other programs. So they can see, oh yeah, I can see that I'm working on sequencing with my kids in Scratch or code.org, and show them the parallels. So I guess I would do that even before opening up the kit, is talking about the parallels between what they're already doing and how you can seamlessly move Code Jumper into what you're doing as an amazing tool for your student with a visual impairment, and an amazing tool for every kid in your class, and how it just so benefits them. And there's so much overlap, for sure.
So we have a question in the chat. I'm currently using the Code Jumper, and I was wondering what device was the best in terms of Bluetooth connections.
Oh, I only use a laptop, but that's just because that's what I've got at school.
Yeah, and I've used Dell computers. I've used Surface devices. There, I don't think there is one that's really the best. I think it's really whatever you have can work. It really is. There's not a best that I know.
Yeah,
Amanda?
for this past week, I had two Surfaces and some other random something hooked up. It was just give me the extra laptop so we could play with the kids today. So
Amanda, this next question is asking you what text-based language you teach your high school students.
I teach all of my students, actually, the 6 through 12 quorum, and that is a language that will be highlighted on Wednesday. It's a completely accessible, free curriculum, all the good things that you want to look for in a curriculum, because it's free and accessible. And I use that, even my learning support students dip their toe into it. They might need some extra support if they're not great typers, but everybody uses that one with me after they get through some of the basics.
And do either of you have any recommendations for online or open coding courses?
For Code Jumper, all the curriculum is available at codejumper.com. There's an entire curriculum that goes through all of the different pieces of basic coding from that we can use with Code Jumper, and things you actually can't do in Code Jumper that are important parts of coding, such as networks and topographies that our students need to learn for the basics. So that's really, I've spent most of my time in Code Jumper. So Amanda, what are your other ideas?
Most of your big curriculums are not screen reader accessible. You have to write in Notepad and copy and paste in. So depending on the tech savviness of your students, you can beat any of them into submission, but it's not fun. So the one that is the main reason I use Quorum for all my kids. Full disclosure, I'm on the curriculum committee. So if you find errors in those lessons, feel free to yell at me. It is my fault. If you're just a teacher wanting to learn coding, I would find anybody who's offering APCSP and hop into one of those, even the Khan Academy version of it, which Khan Academy is actually very accessible in their coding class, because that is literally the main background I have, and I passed the computer science teaching exam. So it's a very comprehensive wraparound of computer science. Yeah, we're working on getting things more accessible, but that's kind of
big ship to turn.
difficulty. Yeah.
I will say that APH has hosted 2 coding courses for adults that were built specifically for individuals who can't see. Both of those courses, they were in April, in March and April, and they are on our YouTube channel if you want to watch them. And we are planning on 2 more coding courses for adults. And this is for adults who are blind or have low vision. And I think the next 2 will be August and then I think November. Don't hold me to that, but that's what's the plan is. Those are free. They were a grant from CDW. So those are other options for you that are out there.
Adrian, I see 1, you popped back in, and 2, you said W3 schools. Yeah, I forgot about them. I don't have a lot of people do independent courses, so.
This Adrian Amandi at California School for the Blind. We certainly use encourage Quorum and use HTML on campus. We found it to be a very simple and inviting space. And as Amanda was saying, when you get into these IDEs, these integrated development environments, of where you write code, it's not the code that's inaccessible, it's the environment you write it in that's tricky. And so we found HTML and Notepad or TextEdit on your Mac, or there's even some iPad apps like Text, is a very simple, no strings attached software environment that you can just write code in. And HTML is a friendly enough code that you don't have to do much to get some response. And we jumped into it with pandemic in like, how do you send tangible products out to kids and have them understand coding? And our robotics and engineering type things weren't going to work in that distance learning environment. And so we learned the HTML coding is a little bit tangible. You write the code, you open it in your browser, you feel it with your screen reader, you see the impact with your magnifier on your screen. It's a really neat, simple space that we can do. We'll be talking about HTML tomorrow. And Quorum on Wednesday. There's also a few online learning environments for Python that are accessible that we'll be talking about on Thursday. I'm sure there's more than just that. Oh, we're getting more in the chat. W3 Schools I had commented on. W3schools.com is a fantastic resource for many languages. It walks you through and has on browser ready examples that you can trial the code and directly immediately see your results. It's a very powerful website, wonderful for teachers and good for students that are capable of using it independently or with guidance.
And I know Jason is not with us today. This is Leanne, but we are working to see if we can share one of the videos he was going to share with us of his students. I do have to say, and I'll apologize ahead of time, it was not captioned yet. And when this recording goes up, we will make sure it's captioned. So I'm going to apologize for that right now that it's not, but we're going to work on seeing if we can get that, even though he was ill today.
Nice work, man.
And while we're waiting for that video to get queued up, I wanted to let everybody know that there are award opportunities and contests for you as students. So we want to send you over to that page, letting you know that there's some scholarships awards for those of you that are interested in heading into the coding realm of education. There is also a entry for winning a device, and we're using your registration to show that you have attended. So you have that opportunity to be awarded a device for your attendance here during the Coding Symposium any of the days.
You do have to fill out the Coding Symposium giveaway form, though. That's
Yes.
under the awards section of our website. So if you've attended, make sure you fill out that form. And then we'll double check that you registered, and you'll have a chance to win a device from either Vispero, Humanware, or APH worth up to $3,000.
And Jeff, I see you hopping on.
Yeah, I think I have a video ready to share. Let's see if Bill wants to play nice.
Look,
Don't forget to share your sound.
Yeah, first, Code Jumper was the first program class I had. I'm interested in STEM. Most reason why is because I want to learn how scripting does and like basically everything you have to put into it, the proper things, proper commands and everything like that. I like learning about that.
Somebody tell me what's a computer used for? Just one thing. You.
Email.
Emails. Yes, sir.
It helps you with texting and calling.
So texting, calling's two things. You're fired.
Oh no, don't.
Looking stuff up on the internet.
You get stuff up?
Well, dang, I was gonna say searching for your test scores.
Yeah. Searching for your test scores, yeah. The hub, it's going through pod number 1, pod number 2, pod number 3, and pod number 4.
It's giving signal, but it's charged by a battery.
So it's going in a string. So for those of you who've got it plugged in, listen to me. For those of you who've got it plugged in, one into every port that's on the side of it, you're hearing the sounds at the same time. For these in a string, you're hearing them one at a time. Did you guys in the front hear that? Yeah. What do the two knobs do?
One of them changes the noises and one of them changes the pitch.
So it's the speed, really. And the speed is what's changing the pitch.
Yes.
So it's really just speeding it up.
We have 2 other videos. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit, or do you want me to try to upload the other 2 to share?
Well, for a moment, we can share that at least what was shared by Jason, just the amount of effort that you are seeing with relatively the students were engaged right away. These were older students, so this was 7th, 8th, and 9th grade, I believe, Jeff, or was it 6th, 7th, and 8th? So it was
6th, 7th, and 8th, I believe.
Yeah, I was going to say it's an older range of students, and even they were captivated with what they could do with Code Jumper. I think I'm going to let you run the next one.
I want to be a engineer, and because I like putting things together, fixing them. Probably the mouse was, because it was more like colorful and cartoon, like you're, because it feels when you're playing with those, learning with those, you basically, I feel like you're just playing, but you're also learning because they're making it fun to the point the kid me that knows that I'm doing something fun, but I'm also learning.
Okay.
Not really.
Are we ready?
Grammarly.
1, 2, 3, 4. Go. Go. You gotta get excited. Go. 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 Yeah. Go.
Right now.
Go.
I've done this.
Kick us off. You. Raising that roof. You. Give us some oh! You. Oh, that's right. I'm done. You. No. You. What? We don't eat the orange pieces right now.
Hey, look.
They had 2 of them down there. I'll grab the side.
What you know
Okay. So you should have the green squares out.
Yes.
And you should have the bag of. Is it so difficult? Your mind's exploding? No? All right, do me this favor. So you got the same straight line. Take your mouse and turn the nose facing away from the cheese. Now do it.
Oh, backwards.
Program the mouse to get the cheese, but his nose has to be pointed away from it. Now do it.
You gotta go backwards.
Set it here.
Turn right and turn
Set
right.
it here.
So the cheese goes to the You got it. And the cheese will do that. Cheese will do Literally just did it.
You gotta clear them out.
Wait, it's a magnet.
Guys, to clear it out, hit the yellow button every time, okay?
I never tried
The yellow circle.
I didn't know.
Because I'm trying to learn how to program two checks. Clear.
But real man, here you go, here you go. It's something like that. We did it.
Put in your freaking sleeve.
I did say it can be hot a lot more. Thank you.
I'll get mine this time. Hey! I just twisted the number 8 times and it did it.
What?
I just twisted the number 8 times and it did it.
Wait.
Listen, I can make it do an up and down.
Okay. Now, which one?
See what else you can find to take.
Why you blushing? Well, I see you too.
It sounds like this woman should try to sing.
Okay, I think we got it.
I don't know this one, so I can't.
There's one more video that I'll play, and this will be the final one.
I wanted to summarize that one for those of you. We know that those videos were shared a little prematurely and didn't have audio description or things, but the video went through utilizing Code Jumper, which we've been talking about, as well as the accessible Code and Go mouse, which is available from APH through their Road to Code series.
And our captionist has been very generous and is captioning while they're on.
Very nice.
Thank you for trying to caption. I have used Code and Go Mouse in classes a lot. I absolutely love it. I've been using it for the 6 years I've known it existed, and it's a great tool for basic algorithms and following step by step. And kids love to design their own mazes to trick each other to try to get to the end. Yeah, it's an absolutely great great tool.
Okay, our final video is about 4 minutes, so here we go.
The code jumper. I liked programming it, especially the piano scale and the Beethoven's Fifth Symphony. I mean, I really love music. I mean, I really love this week. I mean, I watch a show called BattleBots where people build robots and they fight each other, the robots fight each other. And I really love that show, and that's why I was super excited. I mean, my dad and I were so excited to hear about this week, and I was amazed at all the things we've done. I mean, the code jumper and the Code and Go mouse, it was really fun. I mean, I love this. This is amazing.
Do this for a while, right? Yes. How would we do this in music? It's the same notes, but we want to loop you.
Oh.
We want to loop your two different threads. Your thread is, but we want to loop it. Let's loop it 4 times. Now you guys in the back, I want you to be paying attention because you're gonna come in a second. All right, ready? We're gonna loop 4 times. So 1, 2, 3.
Oh. I think I know what this is.
Really?
All right. Well, they ran 4 times, so I don't know where the guys in the back are.
Oh no!
All right.
Now count
4 times.
4 times.
This time, no.
So, what happens when one part of the program doesn't run?
Everything
Right. And if my cool kids on the rock you side, even though they didn't say we will, your program still could have said rock you, even without them. So let's try it again. All right. All right, hang on. We're building this. It is so easy for everybody to sit here and go. But that's one sequence, only one. This is 4 threads with a different sequence. Are we ready? And 1, 2, 3. I love that. See if you can use. There is one. There you go. Okay. Try this one more time.
I don't even want to shoot
Thank you, Jeff. What a wonderful set of videos they're putting down there together in Alabama. So more of Code Jumper was shown in there, but even more accessible and something that we can do even mainstream kids in classes and with our groups of students for blind and low vision is these unplugged activities. This concept that you heard with that We Will Rock You lesson of we're able to teach many of the foundational elements of coding with no technology in sight. Just our students and their bodies of any differentiated ability levels we can introduce these coding concepts sometimes more concretely to our students than what the screen does during hour of code for the rest of the kids. And so very welcome space for us as vision specialists to bring coding concepts and ideas in the early elementary gen ed classrooms as well, so that our push-in services can serve across beyond just our blind and low vision kids, and certainly something we can use at Schools for the Blind and with our groups and individual students as well.
Yeah, physically interacting and representing code is even when I went to a college board AP symposium. That was one of the big things they even pushed for, you know, your top level high school students with coding, is that if you get them to stand in the row and pretend they're each part of a code and repeat and skip and loop. And, you know, if you have a conditional and they have to go, wait, do I talk? Do you talk? Who's next? It really helps solidify the logic of the code instead of just like going through the motions and matching the example to a new thing. They don't, it's getting them to be more intentionally think about what they're doing. It's a lot of fun too, especially when you do something like Rickroll them in the middle of their code. Highly suggested.
Brilliant stuff. Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, Robin. Appreciating and recognizing the time. Leanne just shared the closing code in the chat. And the closing code for today's session is JUMPER, JUMPER. Tomorrow, we are right back at it at 8:30 in the morning. We are going to have another wonderful keynote from Leonie Watson from Tetralogical, a wonderful motivational speaker and really involved in our community and a programmer herself. We'll follow that up with a panel on web design and accessibility with HTML and CSS. And we'll dive a little deep into this HTML space and how HTML code, one, is fun and engaging and interactive and something we all deal with every single day on our phones, tablets, and computers. But learning how also engaging and learning how to code it helps our screen reader and screen magnifier users get over a plateau and become better users themselves and more efficiently navigating websites and more efficiently searching and researching on the internet, which we all know is a little bit of a time tax typically. So learning a code to try to make every student more efficient. And then we'll wrap it up with student presentations from the California School for the Blind and the New York Public Library. On Wednesday, we'll jump into Quorum, and on Thursday, we'll do Python. On Friday, we'll do a wrap up and really identify how coding goes beyond just languages, and it goes into careers, and it's beyond programming as a career choice. It's relevant all across our society and more so in our future. So a reminder to register again the rest of the week. Bring in different students. For teachers who are on here, bring in the same. We are encouraging and happy to answer all questions that come up in chat. Any students that attended, please fill out their award registration form on our website so that they can be eligible for a prize award from APH, Humanware, or Vispero, worth up to $3,000. And we have 6 of those. Thank you for attending, and see everybody again.
See everyone soon. I'm going to end this session. See you all tomorrow.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, thank you.